Chapter 383. The Nether King descended, and a terrifying shockwave spread out. Everyone present was sent flying, and their blood dyed the ground red. The extreme sky dissipated, and falling star, Jian-yi, Jian-Bodhi, and the others were also sent flying by the extreme sky divine might. Everyone landed on the ground and retreated several steps. They barely managed to stabilize themselves, but they all vomited blood. The Nether King hadn't even used a single move. Just his aura alone was enough to make the experts present suffer heavy injuries. "Run!" shouted the Eternal Night Hierarch. His eyes were filled with shock. "Do you think you can escape?" The Nether King raised his hand, and a boundless divine might spread out. His palm split open the sky, and the universe lost its color. Frost Sky Burial Flower. The palm descended, and Palace Mistress Shihua's expression changed. She gathered her true yuan and the power of the 5 tribulations to block the divine might with all her strength. With a loud bang, the frosty sky collapsed and the flowers dispersed. Blood sprayed 10 meters into the air like a waterfall. Before the brilliance in Palace Master Shihua's eyes could dim, she fell into the dust with a bang, and her body and soul vanished. Palace Mistress Wan Fengchen's expression changed. "Run! Extreme lightning, sacrifice to the heavens!" shouted the Eternal Night Hierarch anxiously. He activated his divine dagger axe and used his extreme skill. Scarlet lightning gathered and slashed down from the sky. Everyone endured the grief of losing their comrade and quickly retreated, trying their best to preserve the last of their strength. As the scarlet lightning approached, the Nether King's eyes turned cold. The lightning collapsed and disappeared. In the next moment, a cold light flashed through the god's eyes. Duke Qinghua, who was retreating, suddenly trembled. A cold light pierced through his chest, and blood spurted out. He silently fell. Qinghua. Wan Fengchen's pupils shrank. He wanted to stop and help, but Jianghua forcefully dragged him away. "It's too late." Jianghua's eyes flashed with grief. His aura quickly dissipated, and he no longer had any vitality left. The number 1 Duke of the Sudden Lightning Dynasty would forever sleep in the Divine Prefecture. Everyone retreated hastily. They didn't dare to stay. At this moment, stopping meant death. There was no other outcome. At this moment, the descending deity raised his hand again. Instantly, the 9 heavens trembled, and violent waves swept out. Terrifying might gathered, and the divine technique condensed again. Heaven and earth changed color. Seeing that the divine might was about to descend, Jian-Bodhi sighed deeply in his heart. He stopped retreating and conjured the light of Sutra. Endless golden light soared into the sky, piercing through the heavens and earth. With his life as the price, he unleashed the ultimate move of Buddhism to buy everyone a chance to escape. Bodhi Heart Meditation, attaining Bodhi with a single thought. A huge golden swastika appeared beneath Bodhi's feet. It shone with a dazzling brilliance. His black hair danced in the wind, and his youthful face was the memory left behind by the Buddhists. In the next moment, Bodhi disappeared. Holy light purified the world, enveloping everything within a 10-mile radius. Rumbling sounds could be heard as the ground collapsed. Bodhi's final move could destroy the heavens and earth. Not even space could withstand it. Cracks continued to spread out. Within the holy light, the Nether King was as still as a mountain. His black robe fluttered in the wind, and his starry eyes were calm. "Human, leave your name." Sword Bodhi. With the endless holy light descending, the Nether King left his last grace in the divine prefecture. He raised his hand and dispersed the holy light around him. Step by step, he walked out. As the light dissipated, the heavens and the earth calmed down. Bodhi exchanged his life for the move and gave everyone a chance to escape. The Nether King watched them disappear but did not chase after them. "Your Majesty," Bai Jiang knelt down and said respectfully. "Return to the God's sect," the Nether King said lightly. As soon as he finished speaking, the black aura flowed and the two figures disappeared without a trace. It was a tragic battle. The earth was shattered, and the world was devastated. Heavy rain poured down, and the rolling dark clouds could not hide the glaring blood moon. This time, even the heavens and earth did not know how to survive this disaster. Outside the wooden house in the academy, the headmaster looked at the crying divine prefecture. His old eyes flashed with a touch of emotion. The human world did not escape this disaster after all. In the Qizhou Mountains, in the belly of the Taotai, Jiang Wangji fell silent. He looked at the young man in front of him without saying a word. The Tai Xianyin reverberated. He was doing his best for the human world. In the imperial city of the Xia dynasty, in the Haowu mansion, beams of flowing light gathered. After landing, they vomited red blood and looked gloomy. Everyone knew that the human world was doomed. Don't be depressed. If even we give up, there will be no hope for the human world, the hierarch of the eternal night looked at everyone and said in a low voice. Wan Fengchen steadied himself and looked to the west. A touch of helplessness flashed in his eyes. Was there really any hope for the human world? Xia Zi sighed and said rationally, the Nether King's arrival is a fact. The disaster of the divine prefecture cannot be solved in a short time. We need to think about it at length. Before that, please take the time to heal your injuries. Yes. The hierarch of the eternal night, the golden staff imperial master, and the others nodded. There was indeed no good way now. Before the Nether King attacked again, the most important thing for them was to recover their strength as soon as possible. Everyone went into seclusion to heal their injuries. They did not know if there would be a tomorrow. They wanted to preserve their last bit of strength. No one knew where the hope lay in this disaster. In the void shrine of the Eternal Night Divine Sect, black chi drifted. The Nether King descended and took the Eternal Night Divine Scripture. His divine aura surged and suppressed the effects of the Chaos Scroll. The aura of the seven ultimate divine physique fluctuated, and his true yuan was rapidly consumed. The god who had descended to the human world in advance had a flaw in his divine body. Under the rapid consumption, his true yuan was constantly being depleted. Found it. The Nether King waved his hand and closed the Chaos Scroll. He looked in the direction of the Tiansang Academy. His calm eyes did not have any color. So Xiaji was hiding there. The black qi overflowed, and the Nether King's body dissipated. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared. In the academy, Mu Qingxue, who was feeding the horse, suddenly changed his expression. He looked to the horizon, and shock flashed across his beautiful face. The little white horse, which had grown up a long time ago, trembled. The fear that came from the depths of its soul could no longer be concealed. The Nether King appeared in the sky. He glanced at the trembling little white horse, then withdrew his gaze and looked at the wooden house. Was this the last guardian of the human world? In the wooden house, the teacher, who had been tidying up the ancient books, finally finished the last of them. He stepped forward, opened the door, and walked out. The teacher was very slow because he was too old. However, the Nether King was not in a hurry. He was waiting for the guardian of the human world to finish the final arrangements. His black robe fluttered in the wind, and his face was flawless. He was not in a hurry, and he was calm and noble. The god, who hated the filth of human hearts, still gave the strongest cultivators in the human world the greatest fairness. Taisu. The teacher opened his mouth. Under the wooden house, an ancient mottled sword slowly rose. In an instant, the ground of the academy trembled. Endless righteous energy gushed out and penetrated the old teacher's body. The most powerful person in the divine prefecture for 1,000 years finally showed his true heroism. 1,000 years of luck of the Confucian sect gathered in his body. The old teacher's face quickly became younger. His white robe and long black hair danced in the wind. At the same time, in the stomach of the Tao Tai in the Chizhou Mountains, Dao Kuei stood up and glanced at the young man who had reached the final stage of his cultivation. A faint smile appeared on his face. Farewell forever. The ground cracked open, and a ray of light flew out. It disappeared in an instant, rushing toward the academy. In the sky above the academy, the teacher walked up with his sword. He looked at Yama in front of him calmly. He had held on for 1,000 years, and finally, this day had come. At this moment, a purple ray of light came into view from the north of the academy. Dao Kuei had arrived. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of the two. Are you ready? Yama asked calmly. Sorry for the long wait. Please, the teacher said seriously. Then I shall officially begin. Yama raised his hand, and his divine power shook the sky. Raging waves surged, and thunder rumbled in the sky. Dark clouds rolled, and the atmosphere was extremely oppressive. The first palm made the heaven and earth tremble. Everything prostrated, and the majestic divine power roared out. The terrifying power made the human world cry out. Go against the yin and yang of heaven and earth, transform the qi of heaven and earth. Gather the yuan and return to one. Infinite Tai Chi gives birth to the yin and yang. The Xuani sound of Tai was activated, and the Taoist formation was activated. Black and white Qi spread out. The formation was limited to Yama's power, and it blocked the power of the destroyer physique. However, the divine power was unstoppable. God's palm origin broke through the formation and landed in front of the two of them. Dao Kuei's eyes narrowed, and the Xuani sound changed again. The 7 strings moved, and the yin-yang ancient sword appeared. It turned into 2 sword radiances and rushed up. At the same time, the Taisu sword in the teacher's hand moved. Righteous energy surged, and with the help of the sword, they blocked the divine power together. With a bang, the divine power dissipated. On the zither strings, 5 fingers were stained with blood. The Taisu sword hummed, and it instantly rushed up. Jiang Wangji did not care about the injury on his fingers. With his blood as a guide, he activated the formation again. The yin-yang dual swords gathered the brilliance of the 2 elements, and they fell from the sky and slashed at Yama. Good coordination. Admiration flashed in Yama's eyes. He flipped his left palm and blocked the Taisu sword. At the same time, he gathered divine power in his right palm and blocked the Tai dual swords. Unfortunately, you are still too weak. As soon as he finished speaking, divine power surged out, and the 3 swords flew back. The teacher's hand that held the sword was stained red, and he retreated 10 feet. Dual Sea of Qi. Below the battle, Mu Qingshue's eyes narrowed. He was too familiar with this situation. When he fought the martial monarch with her, the same situation happened. The autumn water flows through the 2 elements, and the sky appears in the sea of clouds. Seeing the divine power of Yama, the teacher's Taisu sword penetrated the sky and the earth. The person who created the move used the ultimate move of the Confucian school. Dao Kuei also used his move to cooperate. The Tai Xianyin formed, and thousands of flowing lights gathered, increasing the power of the ultimate move of the Confucian school. In the stormy battle of the academy, Tao and Confucianism were the first in 1,000 years to work together to fight against Yama. This battle was beyond common knowledge, and it attracted the attention of countless strong cultivators in the divine prefecture. While they were shocked, they could not help but feel hopeful. They did not expect that there would be 2 such strong cultivators in the divine prefecture. Even the ancient sages were not as strong as them. 3 disasters consummation. Somewhere in the divine prefecture, Yaman, Jia Feng, and the others looked at the battle in the distance, and they were shocked. There were 2 consummation cultivators in the divine prefecture. In the Haowu mansion, many strong cultivators were also paying attention to this earth-shattering battle. Even if they did not believe it, at this moment, they still hoped that the teacher and Dao Kuei could stop the tribulation of Yama. Luo Xingqian's eyes kept flickering. He did not know if it was an illusion or something else, but he felt that the two people's existences had surpassed the ordinary three disasters' consummation. Especially the teacher, after 1,000 years of righteousness, he had already surpassed the limits of what humans could reach. Perhaps, there was still hope in the human world. Chapter 384. Above the academy, dark clouds rolled and thunder filled the sky. For the first time in 1,000 years, Confucianism teamed up to fight against Pluto. The intense battle had reached its peak. The two of them teamed up, and the ultimate move of Confucianism pierced through heaven and earth. The two strongest people in the world opened the sky with their swords and moved the world with their guqin. Taisu and Taisu gathered the fate of Confucianism. At this moment, they surpassed the limits of humans and reached a realm that had never been seen before. Above the sky, thunder stirred in the dark clouds that were pierced through. Surges of righteousness shook and spread thousands of miles away. A strange look flashed across Pluto's eyes. He didn't wait any longer and raised his god's hand. Amidst the rumbling, the thunder in the sky was guided down and gathered around the deity. Immediately, he flipped his palm and used another move. With a boom, the void above the academy collapsed rapidly. Furious thunder roared and attacked the two people in front. At this moment, Taisu's sword slashed down. The dazzling white light split the heaven and earth and shattered the furious thunder. It descended upon the deity. Oh! With a sigh of admiration, Pluto turned his left hand and blocked the sword. With a boom, the sword radiance shattered. The raging waves surged endlessly and turned everything within 1,000 feet into nothingness. Defying the yin and yang of heaven and earth, transforming the qi of heaven and earth. Return to one, Xianhuang God slaying. The moment the deity blocked the move, Dao Kuei's eyes narrowed. He took a step forward, and above the yin-yang formation, Xianhuang formation was activated. The two formations resonated with each other and shone brightly. It pressed down from all directions, slaying deities and demons. Defying the deity, your courage is commendable, but your stupidity is unparalleled. As he spoke, the aura around Pluto gushed out. His 2C of qi reappeared in the world. His attack and defense were synchronized, blocking the power of yin-yang and Xianhuang. After blocking the move, the deity raised his hand again. Water waves gathered, and in a blink of an eye, the water waves turned into raging waves. The terrifying move shocked the world. Dao Kuei's expression was unusually solemn. The vital energy around him rose to its maximum. As the sound rippled, the majestic fate of Taoism lingered out again. The yin and yang swords turned into white light and spun rapidly to block the deity's move. With a loud boom, the two swords flew out. The strings of Tai Guqin broke one by one. Jiang Wangji took a few steps back, and the corner of his mouth was stained red. Dao Kuei showed signs of defeat. At the same time, Tai Su got close to the deity and slashed at the sea of qi in front of the Netherworld King's chest. Just as the divine technique was executed, he couldn't recover his qi in time. However, the other Dantian sea of qi instantly made up for the flaw, and his protective qi blocked the Tai Su sword. "Stand down," said the Nether King. His true origin spread out, and in an instant, he and his sword were both blown away. After 100 feet, the headmaster stopped and barely managed to stabilize himself. His entire right arm was dripping with blood and his injury was even more serious. Seeing this, Dao Kuei endured the injuries in his body and pulled the broken strings of the zither with his left hand. He used his blood to repair the zither and used the zither to control the sword. The profound formation was activated again. Defying the yin and yang of heaven and earth, transforming the 100 qi of heaven and earth into one, bringing the universe to nirvana. The yin-yang ancient swords spun rapidly as black and white formation runes spread out from the center of the battlefield. Piece after piece of the void collapsed and swallowed everything in the world, turning the surrounding 100 miles into a dark and cold world of death. The next moment, the two swords dashed forward, one after the other. One of them was as heavy as a mountain, while the other was as fast as a white rainbow. Once again, the sharp sword light broke through the chi sea in front of the deity's chest. Pointless struggle. The Nether King raised his hand to block the white rainbow sword light. Then, the black sword edge approached him and collided with the white rainbow sword light. With a bang, the white rainbow broke through the protective true origin and approached the deity by an inch. Silently, a drop of blood slid down from the deity's palm. Then, the wound healed and disappeared. The Nether King waved his hand and the two swords flew down, their brilliance dimming. An undefeatable deity and an undefeatable fate. The Nether King's strength was beyond comprehension. His every move was unstoppable. The situation was getting worse. The headmaster and Dao Kuei were running out of time to recover their original cultivation. Under the powerful attacks of the Nether King, the fate of the Confucian and Taoist sects had been greatly depleted. Dao Kuei, let's begin. The headmaster glanced at Jiang Wangji, who was not far away. His eyes flashed with determination as he said seriously. Hearing the headmaster's reminder, Jiang Wangji's expression became serious. He nodded without hesitation. The Tai Guqin moved. The two swords rose from the ground and flew back into the Tai Guqin. As the xian sound played, the headmaster's body quickly turned into ashes. The thousand-year fate of the Confucian sect rose to the extreme. Taisu dispersed and disappeared without a trace. Go against the yin and yang of heaven and earth, turn into the chi of heaven and earth, return to the origin, and reverse life and death. The last move, the last formation. The spiritual chi within 100 miles gathered rapidly and turned into a huge formation. The figure of Dao Kuei who was playing the Guqin had turned into ashes. The formation reversed life and death, turned life into a path of death, and trapped the deity. In the formation, the Nether King looked at the swirling storm around him. His calm eyes lit up. The last formation was not bad. In the storm, the xian sound resounded through the 9 heavens and pressed down on the deity. The protective true origin gathered around the Nether King to block the xian sound. However, the xian sound did not stop. It kept reverberating in the formation. The true origin in the Nether King's body was greatly depleted. Due to his early arrival, a flaw appeared in the protective true origin. In an instant, the protective true origin flickered. At this moment, Taisu appeared and turned into a white light that broke through the deity's body. With a bang, the protective true origin scattered. Taisu entered the Nether King's body and penetrated the sea of qi in his chest. At this moment, endless righteous energy entered the deity's body. Along with the Confucian faction's 1,000 years of luck, it disappeared in an instant. As the righteous energy entered the Nether King's body, the true origin in his body revolved to resist, suppressing the strange force in his body. At the same time, the deity endured the pain in his chest and used the deity's move again. The blue heavenly fire surged and roared, engulfing the 9 heavens and 10 earths. The heavenly fire's power was unstoppable. The formation that trapped the deity could not hold on any longer. With a bang, it collapsed. The formation dissipated, and the Tai Guqin fell from the sky. When it was about to hit the ground, Dao Kuei's figure appeared. It was blurry and was only a remnant soul. Cherish the last time I left you. The Nether King's body slowly descended. He did not care about Jiang Wangji, who had lost his ability to fight. He walked step by step to the front of the little white horse. His eyes narrowed, and a strange light flashed in his eyes. It was strange that the Xieji's origin was in the body of an ordinary horse. As the divine power approached, the little white horse cried out and trembled. It was as if it had foreseen its fate. Not far away, Mu Qingxue was shocked. He moved his sword and his body trembled. His speed was so fast that it was shocking. Before the leaves could fall, the sword had already taken his life. The Nether King did not move. His eyes flashed, and a bloody mist gushed out. A cold light penetrated his body, bringing with it a large waterfall of blood. Don't sacrifice yourself needlessly. Let's go. Dao Kuei's soul flashed and took a step forward. He carried the heavily injured Mu Qingxue and left quickly. The Nether King did not chase after them. He looked at the white horse in front of him and raised the hand of God. A boundless suction force appeared from his palm and extracted the Xieji's origin. Roar! The little white horse's life was threatened. A deafening roar of a beast was heard. The little ape rushed out. Its body grew and quickly returned to its original form. Its huge body appeared and stomped down, shaking the heavens and earth. The little white horse was frightened. It whinnied and urged the former to escape quickly. The little ape had passed the innate tribulation and was very powerful. However, in front of the creator of the world, all struggles were futile. Before the huge foot even touched the body of the god, the ape's body had already begun to disintegrate. It was difficult to bear the backlash of the divine power. With a bang, blood and bones filled the sky. The ape died and disappeared. The little white horse whinnied. Its consciousness gradually dissipated. The Xieji's origin left its body and fell into the hands of the god. The next moment, a black aura swirled. The Nether King left and disappeared. The dilapidated academy was full of devastation. The aftermath of the great battle destroyed the sacred land of Xia dynasty. The headmaster and Dao Kuei failed in the end. They could not stop the divine power of the Nether King. The power of the god made it difficult for humans to see any hope. In the desolate city, Mu Bai, who had witnessed the great battle, was silent. In the sword pool, the chaos sword essence was still floating silently. The sword on the academy's sword was dazzling. The fog in the heart of the swordsman was even thicker. If it was not cleared, they would never see the light of day. In the Qizhou Mountains, Dao Kuei appeared with Mu Qingxue. His blurry soul was even weaker. The woman was unconscious. Although she was lucky enough to avoid being hit, she was still seriously injured. Jiang Wangji sighed. He glanced at the woman in front of him and plucked the strings with his soul power. In the sound, the last bit of Dao Kuei's spirit dissipated, turning into the purest energy in entering Mu Qingxue's body. This is all I can do. I'll leave the rest to you. Before Dao Kuei disappeared, the last array spread out in the Qizhou Mountains. Spiritual qi gathered and poured into the woman's body. Tai whinnied and accompanied its master on the last journey. Then, it collapsed inch by inch and dissipated in the array. Heaven and earth did not know how to survive this divine tribulation. Only the humans themselves could work hard and search for a future that they did not know existed. In the imperial city of the Xia dynasty, the eternal night hierarch and the others were still healing. Even the headmaster and Dao Kuei had been defeated. They did not know what else they could do. However, everyone knew that if they gave up, there would be no more hope in the world. The aftermath of the gods' descent continued to spread throughout the divine prefecture. Natural disasters occurred frequently and chaos broke out everywhere. Millions of people died in the disaster. The end of the divine prefecture was close at hand. The people cried and prayed that the martial marquises who had saved the Xia dynasty time and time again could lead the Xia dynasty through this crisis. However, in the face of the supreme power, even the martial marquises of the Xia dynasty could not do anything this time. They silently looked at the crying world and sighed in their hearts. In the dark abyss of the eternal night hierarch, the lord of the underworld transformed into the essence of the Bai-En and repaired the flaws of the seven ultimate divine body. My lord, the whereabouts of the last two divine beasts have been found. Do you need me to go and bring them back? Bai Jiang knelt and asked. No, I can do it myself. Continue to use the divine canon to find the phoenix origin. Also, prepare to pull back the other four regions, the lord of the underworld said calmly. Yes. Bai Jiang respectfully accepted the order and immediately retreated. After Bai Jiang left, the lord of the underworld stood quietly and looked out of the divine prefecture. a cold light flashed in his calm eyes. The divine prefecture was incomplete and his power could not completely descend. Although it was enough to cleanse the divine prefecture again, it was still too troublesome. Pulling back the other 4 regions was imperative. However, before that, he had to find the remaining essence of the divine beasts and repair the flaws that appeared when the 7 ultimate divine body descended. Chapter 385. In the divine Great Land, the blood moon shone high up in the sky. More and more disasters occurred. Broken mountain ranges, rivers, collapsed hills, and surging earth fire could be seen everywhere. The heaven and earth wept, shedding tears for this divine tribulation. Heavy rain poured down, blurring the eyes of all living beings. The northern Meng imperial court, Great Xia, the barbarian dynasty, and even the western dynasties were filled with the cries of the common people. At this moment, there was no distinction between the nobles and the commoners. The filth in the hearts of the people had attracted the wrath of the king of hell, and no one could escape. The tragedy of 30,000 years ago reappeared, and the sages were unable to stop it. In the face of the supreme master of the 7 extinction celestial realm, the insignificance of mankind was undoubtedly displayed. In the imperial city of the Great Xia dynasty, Xia Zi looked at the blood moon in the sky that had stopped descending. His eyes were unusually heavy. The doomsday of the divine prefecture had arrived, but there was no hope at all. The Eternal Night Hierarch walked over and looked at the Emperor of Grand Xia beside him. He said in a deep voice, "Let me remind you that Grand Xia's imperial city is no longer a safe place. Once the Nether King arrives, this place will instantly turn into a land of calamity. I hope that you will be prepared and bring the people you should bring away as soon as possible." Xia Zi sighed deeply and shifted his gaze towards the imperial palace. He said softly, "There's no need. Imperial Mother won't leave. Moreover, there's nowhere else in this world that she can go." Now that the entire divine continent had fallen into the divine tribulation, there was no safe place. No matter where they went, it was the same. The only difference was the time. If they couldn't overcome this divine tribulation, the human world would fall into hell forever. The Eternal Night Hierarch didn't try to persuade him anymore. He changed the topic and said seriously, "The Nether King's strength is too strong. No one can fight against his divine might directly. We have to find his weakness as soon as possible. I'm going to make a trip to the Eternal Night Hierarch and think of a way to take back the Light Scroll." Hearing this, Xia Zi was startled. His expression changed slightly as he said, "Sect Master, please reconsider. This is too risky. Once you encounter the Nether King, you will definitely die. This is the only way now. I'll be careful. I'll go in after he leaves," the Eternal Night Hierarch said seriously. Xia Zi pondered for a moment and said in a deep voice, "I'll go with the sect master so that we can take care of each other." "No need." The Eternal Night Hierarch shook his head and said, "One more person means one more chance of being discovered. Moreover, if we really meet the Nether King, it will be useless no matter how many people we send." Xia Zi fell silent. After a brief moment, he sighed and warned, "Be careful. If you can't do it, don't force yourself. And, I know what to do." The Eternal Night Hierarch nodded and left without further delay. East of Grand Xia, in the Ascension Valley, a black aura gathered. The Lord of the Abyss had descended. He stepped into the spatial tunnel and disappeared without a trace. Now, only Yazi and Tao Tai were left alive in the divine Great Land and the 4 extremes. Logically speaking, Tao Tai was closer to them. However, for the gods, there was no difference between who was closer and who was closer. Compared to Yazi, Tao Tai was just luckier. The Netherworld King did not choose him as his first target. The deities of the 4 extreme realms walked out. Looking at the roaring space turbulence in front of them, they narrowed their eyes. Raising his god's hand, an incomparably majestic divine might gathered. With a flip of his palm, divine might gushed forth, dispersing the spatial turbulence as a flat path appeared. When the Lord of the Abyss descended, the entire four extremes shook violently. Cracking sounds could be heard in the sky. Unable to withstand the divine might, huge cracks appeared in the sky. With the appearance of the deities, the four extremes fell into a state of panic. Not only the martial artists, but even the common people could feel the bone-deep pressure. It was as if the sky was collapsing, causing fear to rise in their hearts. Everyone prostrated themselves, not even daring to breathe loudly for fear of startling the heavens. The Xiantian experts of the four great dynasties looked at the horizon with a grave expression. They retracted their qi and concealed their aura. At the peak of the 9 heavens, the Lord of the Abyss stood in the air. He took a step forward and his figure dispersed. Under the cliff of the half-moon mountain, divine might descended from the heavens. The Lord of the Abyss appeared and walked towards the valley without stopping. Not long after, endless white fog covered the path ahead, trying to obstruct the deities. However, how could the Lord of the Abyss's path be obstructed by fog? The divine might spread out, and the white fog quickly dispersed and disappeared. Roar! In the depths of the valley, Yazi trembled in fear. With a low roar, it spread its wings and tried to escape. Before the divine might, the vengeful beast did not even have the thought of resisting. It immediately fled. You want to escape? Too late. The Lord of the Abyss raised his hand, and a boundless suction force spread out. Heaven and earth turned solemn, and the beast quickly retreated. Yazi could not spread its wings even if it had wings. It roared in fear. In front of the divine might, all resistance was futile. It could only accept its fate of death. A red and black ball of light flew out, and the beast's consciousness gradually dispersed. It crashed onto the ground with a bang, and dust filled the sky. In the four extreme holy lands, Rong Lu walked out of the palace and looked at the half-moon mountain with a grave expression. Was this the Lord of the Abyss? Wan Fengchen and the others had indeed failed. At the same time, outside the Eternal Night Divine Sect, the Eternal Night Hierarch appeared. After sensing that the divine might was gone, he quickly rushed in. The power of the smoke cloud divine spear was astonishing. The experts of the divine sect could not stop it. They could only watch as the former rushed in. In the Void Temple, Bai Jiang, who had been looking for Feng Yuan, heard the battle outside. His eyes turned cold. He actually dared to come back. When Wu Guan turned around, the Eternal Night Hierarch also appeared at the entrance of the Void Temple. When enemies met, their eyes were exceptionally red. Without any greetings, he rushed out with murderous intent. The smoke cloud divine spear blocked the sword. The two figures did not stop at all and directly rushed toward the Eternal Night divine scripture floating in the void. Seeing the former's movement, Bai Zhang's expression turned cold. He changed the direction of his sword and rushed forward. The Eternal Night Hierarch leaned to the side and blocked the sword with his right hand. He condensed energy in his left hand and grabbed the Eternal Night divine scripture. The moment the divine scripture entered his hand, the sword light changed again and slashed down. The sharp and cold light pierced the mind. The Eternal Night Hierarch withdrew his hand and condensed energy in his fingers to repel the sword light. Then, he waved the divine spear and slashed at Wu Guan. Bai Jiang leaned back and avoided the divine spear. Then, he turned his sword around and attacked again. In front of the Eternal Night divine scripture, they fought in close combat. Every move was deadly, and every move was dangerous. Neither of them showed any mercy, and every move was filled with the coldest killing intent, seeking to take their opponent's life. The divine scripture floated and changed hands between the two. The crisscrossing sword and the light of the spear made people not dare to be careless. With a bang, the palm hit Wu Guan's body. The Eternal Night Hierarch, whose cultivation was higher, gained the upper hand. He pushed back the former with one palm, grabbed the Eternal Night divine scripture, and left quickly. Do you think you can leave? Bai Zhang's eyes darkened. Black energy surged around his body and the power of the Nether King rose. He actually showed signs of entering the third calamity. An extremely fast figure blocked the Eternal Night Hierarch's path of retreat. His sword aura became heavier and heavier. Each strike was more ruthless than the last. The Eternal Night Hierarch didn't want to fight for a long time. He blocked a few moves and used the momentum to retreat. Wu Guan's figure flashed and quickly caught up with him. In a flash, the two figures sped out one after another. Before the experts of the divine sect could get close to them, they were struck by the sharp radiance of the two divine weapons and turned into blood and bones, splitting into pieces. Just as the two of them were about to leave the Eternal Night Hierarch, a terrifying pressure descended. The Nether King walked out from the black light. He had returned from the four extremes. "Traitor, your courage has made me look at you in a new light." The Nether King looked at the person in front of him coldly. Seeing the Nether King's return, the Eternal Night Hierarch's expression changed. He pushed his cultivation to the limit and slashed down with his spear. The Nether King raised his hand to block the lightning. Then, with a flip of his palm, divine power surged out. It seemed like a casual palm, but it was still so powerful that it made it difficult to breathe. The Eternal Night Hierarch's eyes narrowed. His cultivation rose endlessly and rushed to the sky. He gathered tens of thousands of lightning bolts on his spear and blocked the divine power head-on. The strongest expert in the world who was the closest to the three calamities' completion landed with his most powerful move. In the midst of 1,000 screams, the void shattered inch by inch. The lightning collided with the divine power, and the terrifying aftermath swept out. Ah! With a muffled groan, the Eternal Night Hierarch retreated several steps. Blood dripped from the corner of his mouth. He was seriously injured. The divine power was irreversible. Although the Nether King's power in the divine prefecture was less than 20%, it was still beyond human power. The absolute gap in strength made people despair. "Luoli, for the sake of our relationship as master and servant, I'll show you one last move. I'll show you the true face of the heavens." As he spoke, the Nether King slowly lifted his god's hand. A moment later, the heavens and earth changed as thunder rumbled in all directions. Raging gales raged as the heavens and earth collapsed. Blazing divine flames appeared, illuminating the 9 heavens. In the face of death, the Eternal Night Hierarch's expression was unusually serious. He stomped his foot, and the red lightning around him surged. He gathered all his cultivation on the spear. He knew that if he couldn't block this move, he would never be able to go back. Just at this critical moment, in the distance, beams of extremely powerful sword light flashed past. They fell from the sky like meteors and slashed toward the deity. Oh! A strange look flashed in the Nether King's eyes. He raised his palm and raised it to the sky. Divine flames spread out and blocked the falling sword rain. In the rumbling, the earth around the deity was completely destroyed by the sword rain and kept sinking. Seeing this, the Eternal Night Hierarch slashed down with his spear. Then, he stopped fighting and quickly retreated. In the sky full of sword rain, the Nether King flipped his left hand and blocked the spear light. His 2 palms blocked the 2 moves. His divine body was as immovable as a mountain. From the beginning to the end, he didn't even move half a step. When the sword rain fell, the Nether King waved his hand to disperse the aftermath. He looked in the direction of the sword rain and said indifferently, "Swordsman, I accept your challenge. However, don't let the deity wait for too long." In front of the sword pool in Barren City, Mubai stood there calmly. The sword intent around him flickered, sometimes strong and sometimes weak. As the number 1 swordsman in the divine prefecture who had just broken out of his cocoon, he sent a challenge to the deity for the sake of swordsmanship and for the sake of the people. "Master." Jian Er's expression was full of worry. Although his master was strong, when facing the deity who was beyond human power, his chances of winning were too slim. Mubai didn't say anything. He still stood quietly in front of the sword pool and looked at the sword in the pool. The previous battle in the academy made him gradually understand what the headmaster meant. Once upon a time, when he was still an ignorant young man, the reason he picked up the sword was very simple. It was to protect Baron City. However, he didn't know when it started, but his sword slowly lost its original intention. Practicing the sword, comprehending the sword, and waiting for the sword, there was only the sword in his life. He walked too far, and he had long forgotten to look back. It turned out that it wasn't that it was lonely at the top. It was just that his sword heart had long left the human world. That was why he couldn't feel the warmth that had never disappeared beside him. Chapter 386. In the imperial city of Grand Xia, the Eternal Night Hierarch returned with heavy injuries, but he also brought back the crucial Eternal Night scripture. There were too few records about the Nether King in the mortal world. Only the Ming scripture might have some useful clues. In the Haowu royal manor, Luo Fei condensed her energy and activated the Eternal Night scripture. The heavenly scripture responded, and rings of golden light spread out. Did you find it? Xia Zi asked. Yes. Luo Fei nodded and said with a serious expression, there's good news and bad news. What are they? Xia Zi asked. Luo Fei waved her hand and put away the scripture. She slowly said, the good news is that the Nether King does have a weakness. Back then, he wasn't able to collect all of the source energy. In addition, he descended early this time, causing the 7 ultimate divine body to be unable to fully adapt to the mortal world. During the process of transforming the world's spiritual energy, there will be serious true essence fluctuations or even a break. However, the 7 ultimate divine body also has 2 chi Cs. This weakness can be made up to the greatest extent. Luo Fei's expression turned serious and she said, the bad news is that because the divine prefecture is incomplete, the Nether King can only descend with 20% of his strength. Once the Nether King finds the source energy of the other god beasts and makes up for the 7 ultimate divine bodies' flaw, he can pull the other 4 regions back. At that time, his main body's strength will be able to completely descend without any restrictions. Hearing the former's words, Xia Zi fell silent. This was truly despairing news. Currently, the Netherworld King's strength was already unrivaled. If he were to really pull the other 4 domains back to his original strength, even if all the innate experts in the 5 domains combined, they would not be able to withstand a single blow from him. Previously, the Nether King's aura temporarily disappeared from the divine prefecture. He should have gone to the 4 extremities. Ning Chen once said that the 4 extremities didn't only have the phoenix, but also the Yazi. Now it seems that the Yazi's source energy must have been taken by the Nether King. Xia Zi thought for a long time before coming back to his senses. Yes. Luo Fei nodded and said, so, we don't have much time left. We must stop the Nether King's actions as soon as possible. Once the Nether King obtains all of the God Beast's source energy and makes up for the divine body's flaw, everything will be too late. Right at this moment, Wan Fengchen walked in from outside and said seriously, we can learn from the method Ning Chen and Mu Qingxue used to break the dual Qi Si. Right now, the biggest problem is how to block the terrifying power of the Nether King's attack. Xia Zi's expression was solemn as he said, it is indeed troublesome. Even with his extreme speed restraining him, the might of the Nether King's moves is not something an ordinary person can block. Apart from the Eternal Night Hierarch, no one in the 2 realms can block a single move from the Nether King. According to the characteristics of our martial arts, Brother Xia has the demon Yuan, so he is the least affected by Pluto's power. He is the best choice for attacking. As for controlling him, Jiang Hua and I are the best choices. Luo Xingqian has the Star Scar Bow, and is good at long-range attacks. He can stay outside of the battle. However, if we want to limit the power of Pluto's attacks, we need at least one more person. Originally, Wang Yu would be the best choice. Unfortunately, he has lost half of his origin, and will need some time to recover. Wan Fengchen analyzed calmly. I'll fill this vacancy, Madame Luofei said in a soft voice. Wan Fengchen was slightly startled and looked at him, not understanding what he meant. No. Xia Zi's expression was cold as he directly refused. With just the moon scroll, it is impossible to restrict the Nether King's attacks. If you force it, the backlash is not something you can withstand. Madame Luofei walked forward, a gentle expression appearing on her beautiful face as she said, right now, there is no other way. If we can't send the Nether King back, then there is no hope for the human world. Since that is the case, we might as well take a risk and try. Wan Fengchen also saw some clues, but he didn't interrupt, leaving the decision to the two of them. Each of them was extremely clear that against the Nether King, even if they worked together, the chances of success were very small. This might be their last battle before they died. The Emperor's eyes were heavy. He didn't want to agree, but he had no reason to refuse. This human world had already become hell. If they wanted to go against the gods, they would naturally have to pay the most disastrous price. Whether or not they could bear it, they had no other choice. Madame Luofei smiled and said, this matter has been decided. The most important thing right now is to choose the person to block the Nether King's attacks. Xia Zi, if you don't want me to die, then try your best. Before I can't hold on any longer, quickly send the Nether King back to the 7 extinction heavens. Amitba, count this old monk in. Du Yi Temple's abbot walked over and said. Grandmaster has the Vajra unbreakable body. If you are willing to help, then you are truly the best choice, Wan Fengchen politely said. This Marquis can also count me in. Marquis Triumph also walked in. Since everyone is here, then the Golden Staff has no reason to refuse. The Golden Staff Imperial Tutor appeared and helplessly smiled. Xian Tian also walked into the hall and calmly said, just Brother Xia alone will be too difficult. Count me in. In the front hall of King Hao's manor, other than the Eternal Night Hierarch who was in seclusion, everyone else had gathered to discuss how to deal with the Nether King. Before we formally face the Nether King, we need to first practice and develop a tacit understanding, suggested Wan Fengchen. Xia Zi thought for a moment and said, I will ask Miss Qing Ning to be the person to imitate the Nether King's attacks. As long as we suppress our cultivation to the peak of the Hotian realm, we will be able to do as we please. Wan Fengchen nodded. That's good. Just as everyone was discussing, the eternal night god Sect's Dark Abyss Wu Guan knelt down and begged for forgiveness. Losing the eternal night divine scripture was his negligence. Stand up. You've already done your best. Luo Li's strength is already close to the peak of the human race. She truly isn't someone you can stop, said the Nether King. Many thanks for Master's forgiveness. Bai Jiang stood up. Hearing that name, the killing intent in his eyes was difficult to conceal. Do you really want to kill him? Asked the Nether King. Master's grand plan is more important. This subordinate's personal enmity with Luo Li isn't worth mentioning. Bai Jiang forcefully concealed the killing intent in his eyes. Ha! The Nether King calmly smiled. I will give you that chance. But before that, you should complete the task I gave you. Yes. Bai Jiang respectfully accepted the order and turned to leave. Now that they had lost the Eternal Night Divine Scripture, they couldn't find Feng Yuan's whereabouts for now. However, they still had to quickly prepare to pull back the 4 regions. After Wu Guan left, the Nether King also disappeared. The Dark Abyss returned to silence. Within the Grand Xia's imperial city, King Hao's manor, Qing Ning had been invited over. Just as the battle was about to begin, Worryless appeared and also joined the battle. The Nether King's dual Qi Si's power allows him to attack and defend at the same time. It'll be difficult for Miss Qing Ning to imitate him. I can't help you against the Nether King, so I'll help you test it out, said Worryless. Many thanks, said Xia Zi earnestly. Please. Please. Jiang Hua and Wan Fengchen's silhouettes flickered, instantly appearing in the middle of the battle. Saber lights flashed, dazzling the eyes. Worryless waved her hand. Heaven and earth's spiritual chi condensed, forming a barrier in front of the saber light. At the same time, Qing Ning condensed her yuan with a flip of her palm, and a powerful palm energy swept out toward the two of them. The saber light's momentum changed, and as her palm shot out, it rapidly cut through the air, sealing the power of her attack. Worryless attacked again. She gathered her spiritual chi and blocked the saber light. At this moment, outside the battle, Xing Chen drew his bow. A green arrow flew out, and in the blink of an eye, it had already reached the battle. Luofei simultaneously activated the scroll of moon, and moonlight spread out. Heaven and earth instantly froze. However, Xiantian power couldn't be controlled by Hotian. She forcefully broke through the shackles, and a powerful palm energy roared out. Marquis Kaixuan, the Golden Staff Imperial Master, and the Buddha in the mortal world joined hands to block the Xiantian palm energy. However, with a bang, the three of them were forced back several steps, and they barely managed to block it. Demonic Sword, Reincarnation. The demonic sword moved, and Reincarnation took a breath. At the moment when Qing Ning's palm shot out, the sword rushed into the battle. It was the moment when the Nether King's Jin Yuan ran out. The clear sword was unsheathed at the same time. The two swords joined forces and attacked Qing Ning's Qi Si. Qing Ning couldn't recover her Jin Yuan in time. Worryless turned her palm to block the sword. At this moment, an extremely fast saber light appeared again, hindering Worryless from blocking the attack. In an instant, the demonic sword and the clear sword arrived. Qing Ning reached out and grabbed the demonic sword. With a clang, she blocked the clear sword's attack. The two swords were restrained, and the arrow light appeared again. It broke through the air and rushed toward Qing Ning's Dantian Sea of Qi. However, at this moment, the Worryless palm energy arrived and blocked the arrow light. Then, the palm energy didn't decrease, and it slammed toward the two people in front of it. The Buddha in the mortal world, the Golden Staff Imperial Master, and the others who were supposed to block the attack couldn't help in time. Xia Zi and Xian Tian flew out, and the situation was instantly broken. Everyone, stop, Qing Ning said calmly. Since the situation was broken, everyone stopped and silently reflected on the mistakes in the battle just now. Among them, their tacit understanding was the biggest problem. Attack, defense, and balance. If they didn't cooperate well, they would be instantly defeated by the Nether King like just now. The blood moon hung high in the sky, and under the moon, the battle had begun once more. Everyone practiced and reflected over and over again, constantly perfecting the tacit understanding between offense and defense. In the little time left, they did their best to add a sliver of hope for the future. After countless times of practice, everyone gradually grasped the key points and suppressed the power of the two people in the formation. When the battle ended, Worryless looked at everyone in front of her and said softly, "The difference in power between the Nether King and all of you might be bigger than what we practiced before. Therefore, during the real battle, all of you must be very careful." When she and Qing Ning worked together, they could only imitate the Netherworld King's attack and defense style. However, the Netherworld King's power was the biggest problem. If they couldn't coordinate with each other to limit the power of his moves, no one would be able to block the Netherworld King's power. In other words, once a loophole appeared in the confinement killing array, it would immediately be broken. Lady Worryless, don't worry. Before she finished speaking, Xia Zi suddenly stopped and looked toward the sky. Her expression changed. In the sky above the imperial city, a black aura gathered. Amidst a strong pressure, the Nether King appeared. He looked at everyone below and said indifferently, "So, all of you are here. This saves me the trouble of looking for you one by one. Xia Zi, where's the Divine Codex?" "The Divine Codex is in my hands." "Let's see if you have the power to take it," Xia Zi replied coldly. Chapter 387. The appearance of the Nether King signified the arrival of doomsday. The imperial city of Great Xia fell into a state of panic. Cracks spread rapidly in the imperial city. Countless houses collapsed, and the Yin River overflowed. Half of the city was destroyed in an instant. The nobles were sorrowful, and the common people were crying. On the day of the great calamity, there was no difference in status. The good, the bad, and the ugly were buried forever in the calamity. Wang Yu and Qing Ning's expressions changed. One returned to the Marquis mansion, while the other returned to the imperial palace to protect the people they cherished the most in their lives. In the Haowu mansion, many figures jumped into the sky. In the void, a great battle was about to break out. Oh. Seems like you've found a way to deal with the 7 ultimate divine body. Don't disappoint the god, the Nether King said as he glanced at everyone. As you wish. Wan Fengchen and Jiang Hua were the first to attack. Their bodies moved, and saber light appeared. The sharp edge flew out with the wind. It was so fast that it disappeared in the blink of an eye. The Nether King was as still as a mountain. He opened his palm to block the sharp edge of the 2 sabers. Blood blade. Qing Yu quickly turned around and dodged the god's origin palm. A swift and fierce killing light streaked past. The 2 blades that only attacked and did not defend were as fast as moving clouds and flowing water. There was not the slightest bit of stagnation. This was a decisiveness that did not care about life and death. At the same time, Falling Star waved his hand and drew the bow. Thousands of air currents gathered, and a green arrow appeared. It targeted the vital point of the Nether King's dantian. When the arrow was shot out, it gathered energy and drew qi. The space trembled, and a dazzling light streaked across the sky. It went straight for the god's sea of qi. The Nether King turned his palm and condensed energy. Spiritual qi converged within a radius of 1,000 feet. The green arrow stopped, unable to move forward. In the next moment, he unleashed his palm origin qi with an earth-shattering momentum. When the god attacked, Luo Fei's expression turned serious. Her aura was pushed to the limit, and the moonlight spread out, trapping the sky and locking the earth. In an instant, the wind stopped, and the world became solemn. The scroll of moon appeared, blocking the god's attack. Oh! The Nether King's eyes flashed. He didn't stop his attack. He was interested in this killing array. When the palm energy got close, the 2 sabers turned back and avoided the god's attack. The 2 swords followed, and the attack was fierce and ruthless. Fast, fast, fast sabers, each saber faster than the previous one. Heavy, heavy saber, each strike heavier than the previous one. The saber and the sword worked together to break through the divine power, leaving no gaps. At the same time, the light of the arrows streaked through the 4 figures, aiding the formation. Madame Luofei's essence locked divine technique and the scroll of moon locked down space, buying time for the 4 of them. Everyone knew how terrifying the Nether King's palm was. The best way to deal with it was to use offense to counter offense and reduce the chances of the Nether King making a move. Not bad. The Nether King waved his hand to block wave after wave of attacks. A trace of admiration flashed in his eyes. This was the first time a stalemate had occurred since the advent of the gods. The masters of the divine great land and the 4 extremes had joined forces. They had abandoned life and death in order to leave behind the last hope for the human world. When they attacked and cooperated, they no longer had any distracting thoughts. Their spirits were unprecedentedly focused. They had given their all in this battle. Are you ready? I'm going to officially begin. With a flip of his palm, the Nether King blasted away the sword and saber in front of him. He then raised his god's hand as a bright light radiated from his body. Terrifying waves of energy gushing forth. When the divine power was released, Madame Luofei's delicate body trembled slightly. The backlash had injured her body. The howling divine technique possessed astonishing might. The extreme speed of the sealing technique, the tip of the arrow, and the restriction of the scroll of the full moon. The might of the deity's technique had already weakened by several degrees. However, at this moment, it was still as terrifying as before, causing everyone to feel fear. Vast military might. Victorious Return stepped forward and waved his saber. The military might shook the world. The Golden Staff State Preceptor and the Buddha in the mortal world joined forces to resist the divine power of the Nether King. The saber slashed down, dazzling the world. The palm power collapsed, but the aftermath continued to attack. The three of them retreated several steps, their mouths overflowing with blood. The moment the three of them barely managed to resist the divine power, the demon sword and clear sword swept out at the same time. The two swords were like heavy mountains, piercing toward the Nether King's dantian. The Nether King turned his palm to block the sword. One of his dantian's dantian shook. He couldn't recover his dantian's dantian for a short period of time. The other dantian's dantian made up for it. The divine power gathered in front of him and turned into a protective shield, blocking the sword and saber. Rivers and mountains drink hatred, blood maples October red. Wan Fengchen gathered his essence to help the saber, and the saber turned into thousands of blood maples. In an instant, countless saber edges swept out with the wind, breaking the divine power's protective True Yuan. Moon Shadow. With the help of the saber, the moon's shadow disappeared, and the formless edges slashed down. The vibrating protective True Yuan blocked the combined might of the two techniques. Then, the clear sword spun rapidly, drawing the True Yuan from the two sabers, and pierced toward the Nether King's dantian. The three waves of attacks hit the same spot, and the protective True Yuan shook violently. At this moment, the demon sword carried the boundless demon chi, and the strongest attack once again broke toward the Nether King's dantian. In front of the divine power, a flaw finally appeared in the divine power's protective chi. The sword's momentum was exhausted, and the demon chi dissipated. A crack also appeared on the divine power's protective chi. At this moment, 3 green arrows appeared, each faster than the previous one, and crashed into the crack. Without any hesitation, the 3 arrows split the sky and finally broke through the divine power's protective chi. The last arrow, bearing everyone's efforts, instantly reached the divine power's dantian. Not bad. Unfortunately, it's still too slow. The god's hand blocked the arrow, and a drop of blood dripped down. The green arrow scattered, and the Nether King disappeared. It was the first time he moved since the battle started. Buddha, you should be the first. The divine power appeared in front of the Buddha in the mortal world. His eyes were cold, and there was no trace of human emotions. He turned his palm and struck. The Du-E Temple's abbot's body trembled. He wanted to block the attack, but it was too late. The divine power descended, and the indestructible Vajra body shattered. His Buddhist bones shattered, and blood spurted out like rain. The divine power fell from the sky and crashed onto the ground. The Buddha in the mortal world disappeared. Abbot! Great Master! Xia Zi and Wan Fengchen's pupils shrank, and they said sorrowfully. Regardless of the past grudges, today, they were all comrades. Under the divine power, even the Buddha in the mortal world, who had the indestructible Vajra body, couldn't block a single attack. Next, you! The divine power raised his hand, and the energy in his palm roared. It swept towards the golden staff imperial teacher, who was the closest to him. Everyone wanted to trap the divine power, but it was already too late. The divine power descended, and death was imminent. The golden staff imperial teacher didn't show any sorrow. He laughed mockingly, and the cautiousness he had suppressed all his life was released at this moment. 7 extinction heavens, I will wait for you in hell. The Northern Meng imperial teacher, one of the strongest 5, was the legend of a generation. With his last arrogant words, his body shattered, and his soul returned to heaven and earth. Imperial teacher. They didn't have time to cry out in sorrow, and their eyes were filled with pain. They couldn't go against the heavens, and they couldn't resist the divine power. The road ahead was so difficult, and they couldn't see any hope. Could it be that they really couldn't pass this divine tribulation? Everyone's determination started to waver. Luofe, it's your turn. The Nether King looked over, and a blue divine flame roared. He struck out with his palm, and death enveloped him. Careful. Xia Zi's eyes trembled. He didn't have time to move forward, and a devil aura surged out from his body. The devil sword slashed down, blocking the divine flame. Void Extreme Overturn. The mysterious heaven sword cooperated with his move, and the clear sword condensed its essence and quickly slashed out. The heaven-burying sword released an extremely bright light. The two swords flowed together, turning into a resplendent sword light that crashed into the destructive divine flame. The divine flame paused for a moment, but in the next moment, it broke through the sword light and arrived in front of Luofe. Farewell. Luofe looked at Xia Zi with a smile. Her eyes flashed with reluctance and reluctance. Unfortunately, she couldn't tell him the words in her heart in the end. The divine flame arrived, and the moon scroll blocked the attack. Seeing that the end of the beauty was irreversible, a white figure rushed over from the sky and instantly arrived behind Luofe. She channeled her power, and the heavenly book closed. Under the moon, frost spread out for thousands of feet, and ice and snow gathered, blocking the divine flame. Seeing the figure that appeared, everyone's body trembled, and their faces were filled with disbelief. White clothes appeared, and his long black and white hair fluttered in the wind. His eyes were calm, and he didn't have the slightest fear even when facing a divine power. Knowing Destiny, Knowing Destiny. The Knowing Destiny Marquis, who had disappeared for a long time, reappeared in the world. His extraordinary appearance made it hard for people to look away. I've been waiting for you, Knowing Destiny Marquis. Seeing the youth in front of him, the Nether King's eyes finally flashed with a different light. Nether King, the path of humanity must be walked by humans themselves. Since you created the world, you shouldn't interfere, said Ningchen calmly. The human heart is filthy, and they don't know how to repent. Only by destroying them can they be reborn, said the Nether King indifferently. Ningchen narrowed his eyes, and his gaze gradually turned cold. He replied, if that's the case, I will stop you at all costs. I won't stop until I die. Then use your strength to prove that you have the ability. The Nether King raised his hand, and a wild mist swirled around him. Immediately, the sky changed color, and lightning covered the sky. A terrifying sea of lightning condensed in his hand, and a power that surpassed the heavens and earth pressed down, making people feel a bone-deep fear. Careful! Xia Zi and the others cried out in alarm when they saw how terrifying the god's technique was. It's fine. Ningchen raised his hand to stop them. He stood in the wind, unmoving like a mountain. In the next moment, the Nether King's palm pressed down, and the divine lightning swept out with a destructive power. Wherever it passed, the space couldn't withstand the divine power, and large areas collapsed. When the divine power arrived, Ning Chen's eyes narrowed. The aura around him rose to the extreme, and the phenomena of life and death continued to evolve. The 4 scrolls of reincarnation blocked the divine power together. The most extreme collision. With a loud bang, 1,000 feet of space collapsed, and a pitch-black crack appeared, reaching hundreds of miles away. The chaotic airflow surged endlessly. In the raging wind, the divine lightning dissipated, and the knowing destiny state stood firm. After one move, the god stopped. He looked at the youth in front of him with admiration in his eyes. He said, "Knowing Destiny Marquis, I will give you another chance because of your performance today. In half a month, I will go to the Chizhou mountain range to get the origin of Taotai. Whether you can stop me or not depends on your ability." After he finished speaking, a black aura circulated, and the Nether King's body disappeared. After the Nether King left, Ningchen fell silent. After a while, a trace of blood slid down from the corner of his mouth. The divine power was hard to block. Even if he had mastered the forbidden technique and had 100 years of foundation, he still couldn't block the divine transformation technique. "How are you?" Xia Zi went up and asked worriedly. "I'm fine." "Let's go down and discuss how to deal with the Nether King," Ning Chen said seriously. Chapter 388. Eternal Night God's Sect, Dark Abyss. Nether King Ming was deep in thought. Bai Jiang looked at the Nether King in front of him and asked, "My king, why don't you get rid of the Jiming Marquis and the other experts in the human world? I have my own plans." "What about the matter I asked you to do?" Nether King said indifferently. The Xiantian Full Circle experts of the Western Buddha homeland sent several experts of the three disasters. As long as we catch one of them, we should be able to determine the location of the other 4 regions, Bai Jiang said seriously. "Where are they?" Nether King said calmly. "Huaqing City, southern border of the Grand Xia." Bai Jiang respectfully said. Ever since the 4 Directions Divine Tower appeared in the Divine Prefecture, he had sent people to pay attention to the whereabouts of these people. If he wanted to bring back the other 4 regions, he had to determine their location first. These people were without a doubt the best source of information. At the same time, in the Grand Xia's imperial city, King Haowu's manor was mostly destroyed. Everyone moved to the Jiming Marquis manor to discuss how to deal with Nether King Ming. Since Nether King Ming's arrival, he had brought with him endless destructive power. Experts of the human world had died one after another. The huge difference in strength made all of humanity's efforts go to waste. The most terrifying thing about Nether King Ming was his incomparably powerful palm energy. As long as one was hit by it, they would either die or be injured. The Jiming Marquis appearance was the first time someone other than Master and Dao Kuei had received a complete attack from a god. It allowed everyone to see a glimmer of light in the darkness. "Ning Chen, among us, you're the only one who personally experienced the battle to break a martial monarch's dual qi si. Do you have any ideas?" Luan Fengchen asked. "Absolute speed and absolute foundation. Also, they must have absolute destructive power to deal a fatal blow," Ning Chen said calmly. Luo Xingchen frowned and said, "In today's battle, we've already tested it. Nether King Ming's true essence oscillation time is very short. Moreover, his protective true qi can't be broken by ordinary attacks. Even the 3 disasters peak experts can't find someone who meets your requirements." Jiang Hua nodded and said, "Brother Xingchen is right. It's very difficult to receive Nether King Ming's palm energy in battle. Even if someone cooperates, they will be defeated one by one like today. After all, there are too few people who can receive one of Nether King Ming's palm energy without dying. Knowledge Marquis, with your current foundation, how many moves can you block from the Deep King?" Luofei asked. "I'll definitely die in 3 moves, Ning Chen said honestly. There was a limit to the human body. If one's palm strike couldn't be neutralized in time, it would swiftly collapse. Hearing the answer, everyone's heart sank. It was too little. Wanting to defeat the Nether King within 3 moves, even if he had the maximum speed, foundation, and destructive power, it would still be a pipe dream. What if we include Great Xia's 1,000 years of fortune? Xia Zi, who had been silent all this while, suddenly spoke up. 10 moves, or even more. However, if we do that, Grand Xia's luck will scatter, and it can no longer be reversed, replied Ning Chen seriously. With the current situation, we can't care about anything else. If we can send the Lord of the Abyss back, even if Great Xia perishes, it will be worth it. Xia Zi sighed. Friend, you've changed, Ning Chen said seriously. Ha! Xia Zi smiled bitterly. Perhaps. In this chaotic world, there was no room for naivety. If you wanted to gain something, you had to give it up first. It's still not appropriate. Even if Brother Ning can block the Lord of the Abyss attacks, his speed isn't fast enough, and he won't be able to break through the Lord of the Abyss 7 ultimate physique. Even if you find someone to cooperate with you, there isn't anyone in this world who has both extreme speed and the ability to break through the Lord of the Abyss protective True Yuan. Yuan Fengchen raised a new unsolvable problem. Today's battle had already proven that working with many people was too slow, and it was easy to be defeated one by one. Therefore, the person who cooperated with Ning Chen had to have absolute speed and a similar foundation. Yes, and she should be arriving soon. Ning Chen looked toward the Qizhou mountain range in the north. According to the time, she should be arriving soon. At this moment, a white-clothed figure walked out of the Qizhou mountain range's final formation. With a single step, she disappeared. Her speed was shocking. Who are you talking about? Xia Zi narrowed his eyes. Mu Qingxue, replied Ning Chen. It's her. Hearing this name, a strange light flashed through Xia Zi's eyes. Mu Qingxue had cultivated the travel scroll, and her speed was indeed enough. However, with her foundation, could she break through the Lord of the Abyss protective True Yuan? Are you sure? Yuan Fengchen was also worried as he asked in a serious voice. Yes. Ning Chen nodded and seriously said, Senior Dao Kuei left the last of his strength for her. Although she can only use her full strength for a limited time, she should be able to last through this battle. Absolute foundation and absolute speed are both enough. Moreover, the two of you have enough strength to deal the final blow to the Lord of the Abyss. I don't understand why you specifically emphasized absolute destructive power. Jiang Hua's eyes were filled with doubt. Hearing Jiang Hua's question, Ning Chen lightly sighed and said, This is the lesson I learned from my last battle with the martial monarch. At that time, I also believed that with speed and foundation, I would be able to defeat the martial monarch. However, in the end, the principal had to sacrifice himself and exchange his life to defeat the martial monarch. Why? Yuan Fengchen asked. Timing. Ning Chen's expression was grave as he explained, no matter if it was the martial monarch or the Lord of the Abyss, we were in an absolute disadvantage. Even if we relied on external strength to forcefully pull back the balance, we still couldn't change the fact that there was a clear difference between the strong and the weak. As the battle progresses, our external strength will be greatly consumed and this gap will widen. Even if there is an opportunity to win, it will be difficult to grasp it. Therefore, we still need someone to preserve their strength as much as possible. At the crucial moment, they will be able to heavily injure the Lord of the Abyss divine body. Originally, Senior was the best choice for this person. However, Senior's injuries are not light and I'm afraid he won't be able to make it in time for this battle. After saying this, regret flashed through Ning Chen's eyes. The current situation was indeed somewhat troublesome. I'll do it, said Xia Zi. No. Luo Fei's expression changed as if she had thought of something and immediately stopped him. Good friend, have you thought about it? Ning Chen more or less thought of something and solemnly asked. This is the only way right now. Xia Zi sighed and continued, if I completely turn into a devil and endanger the Grand Xia, good friend, you don't need to be soft-hearted. Right now, the human world cannot endure any more calamities. In the end, humans were unable to compare to gods. If he wanted to have the qualifications to fight the Lord of the Abyss, he would have to draw out all the devil qi in his body and obtain a powerful combat strength for a short period of time. However, the price of doing this was very obvious. His only conscious soul would rapidly turn into a devil and lose its last bit of reason. Just as everyone was discussing this, the Lord of the Abyss appeared in Huaqing City in the southern border of the Grand Xia. His powerful divine aura spread out in all directions as he searched for the whereabouts of Yao Man and the others. His divine aura descended and doomsday arrived. All of Huaqing City violently trembled. Cracks continuously appeared in the ground and countless buildings collapsed. Sorrowful cries shook the heavens. Gods disdained to attack ordinary people, but just the divine aura that descended was not something ordinary people could endure. Tens of thousands of commoners collapsed in the calamity, never to wake up again. "Come out. We can't hide anymore," said the Lord of the Abyss indifferently as he looked at the northwest corner of Huaqing City. Yishui Han, Yao Man, Jia Feng, and Jia Yan appeared with heavy expressions. They hadn't expected that even though they had hidden so well, they would still be discovered. "Lord of the Abyss, what do you want to know?" "We can tell you," said Yao Man, suppressing her fear. "No need. Dead people are more trustworthy to me." The Lord of the Abyss raised his hand, and terrifying waves surged out. His divine aura caused heaven and earth to change color. Half of the city rapidly vanished, becoming history. The four of them hastily retreated. However, Yao Man's body had already been locked down by the divine aura. It was too late for her to dodge. With a bang, blood spurted out like a fountain. After one move, 3 calamities had died. They couldn't dodge or block it. Only death was the only result. Yao Man, Jia Yan and Jia Feng were shocked. How could this be? Don't be so shocked. Soon, you'll also join her. Before he even finished speaking, the Lord of the Abyss raised his god's hand once more. Flames immediately soared, and the heaven-incinerating flame condensed around his body. Jia Yan and Jia Feng didn't have time to dodge. The two of them joined hands to resist the heaven-incinerating flame. They were the demonic Buddha's subordinates, and they had the best understanding of each other. Their powerful palms collided with the heaven-incinerating flame, but the divine aura was unbreakable. It directly broke through their defenses and landed on their bodies. With a bang, the two of them were unable to endure the divine aura and exploded. Their blood and bones quickly turned to dust, not leaving behind the slightest trace. "The last one is you," said the Lord of the Abyss coldly. In the blink of an eye, only one of the 3 calamities remained. A god's power made it so that they couldn't even raise the will to resist. The difference between heaven and earth had long since surpassed human understanding. Yishui Han also knew he had no path to take. He raised his hand and slapped his head. Even if he died, he would destroy his divine sense to prevent the Lord of the Abyss from finding out anything. "Foolish," said the Lord of the Abyss coldly. A black aura circulated, and his figure disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already in front of Yishui Han. He raised his hand to stop Yishui Han's body, then pressed his palm on Yishui Han's head to search for what he wanted to know. As the divine aura entered his body, Yishui Han's vitality quickly dissipated. Not long after, the light in his eyes gradually dimmed and lost all its luster. Divine Palace, humans are always ignorant of the immensity of heaven and earth. The black aura dispersed, and the Lord of the Abyss figure disappeared. In a flash, he left Huaqing City. On the desolated land, numerous figures fell into the dust, no longer breathing. This disaster came so suddenly that before anyone could react, it was already over. When humans fought against the gods, the ending was always miserable. 30,000 years ago, the human world was defeated, and blood flowed like rivers in the 5 regions. 30,000 years later, the human world situation was still tragic. One expert after another fell with unwillingness and regret until they died. Mars guarded the heart, and the mortal world was dark for 100 years. Eternal night instructed that light would only come again after 100 years of darkness. However, the human world really couldn't wait for 100 years. Chapter 389. Grand Xia Imperial City, Jiming Manor. The day of the great battle was getting closer and closer, but the manor was surprisingly quiet. In the study, Ning Chen spent most of his time recuperating and adjusting his breath, preparing for the upcoming battle. Mu Qingxue came, and his silence became more and more frequent. Most of the time, he didn't say a word. He just stood quietly in the room, looking at the direction of the palace, lost in memories and contemplation. Xia Zi was still in closed-door cultivation. Inside and outside the secret chamber, the demonic energy was surging. The emperor had entered the demonic path and was doing his best to fight for the last hope of the human world. This was a crucial battle. The three of them carried the hopes of many powerhouses in the human world. With Hell King's terrifying strength, the human world couldn't see the slightest light. This battle would be the most crucial confrontation between mankind and the gods. Inside the study, Ruoshi pushed the door open and came in. She brought a brewed bitter tea and placed it beside Jiming. "Marquis, does your head still hurt?" Ruoshi's beautiful face flashed with a touch of unbearable pity. "It's okay, I can still hold on." Ning Chen opened his eyes and calmly said. Ruoshi picked up the bitter tea, tears unconsciously overflowed from her eyes. "Ruoshi's status is low. I am indebted to the Marquis for not abandoning me and staying in the manor. I am not qualified to say anything, but Ruoshi still pleads the Marquis. No matter what, you must come back alive." She knew the enemy the Marquis was facing this time was different from the past. This was a real god. Whether in myth or reality, mankind had never won against a god. Ning Chen got up and walked to the window. Looking at the blood moon hanging high in the sky, he asked, "Ruoshi, do you know when the darkest time of the night is?" Ruoshi shook her head and whispered, "I don't know." Ning Chen's eyes flashed with exhaustion. "It's before dawn." This was his last responsibility. The human world needed a hope. He couldn't guarantee whether he could come back alive, but even if they couldn't, he would leave a trace of light for the human world. The human world couldn't be destroyed, the dawn would eventually come. In the homeland of Western Buddha, outside the heavenly Buddha mountain, the demon temple, and the celestial palace, a figure in a blue robe walked over with an extraordinary temperament. "Eastern Divine Land, Grand Xia's Prince Yen requests an audience." In front of Buddha mountain, the Prince Yen stopped and calmly said, "Since you've come to request an audience, you should know the rules of Buddha mountain." "Please enter the formation," replied a Buddha mountain attendant as he stepped aside. Prince Yen walked forward. His expression was as calm as water, without any ripples. A man quietly followed behind with a sword rack on her back. A simple and unadorned sword chi revolved around her, making her look extraordinary. The three arrays of Buddha mountain were tests that those who had not been summoned had to go through in order to seek an audience with the Light Senior. In the past few hundred years, only one person had succeeded. The first formation was the Heart Demon Refining Formation. The moon could be seen in the clear sky, and the fragrance of the lotus was faintly discernible. The two people who entered the formation slowly walked over. The refining formation disturbed the heart and trapped the person who entered the formation. However, the two of them didn't stop at all when they walked past the array. The array that had blocked countless geniuses' inner demons didn't work at all. How could this be? The Discipline Pavilion Master frowned. Confusion flashed across his face. Buddha Mountain had existed for tens of thousands of years, and countless geniuses had come here. However, they had all suffered in the mental demon refining array. This was the first time he had encountered such a situation. In the second formation of Buddha Mountain, 4 bodhisattvas appeared. Their powerful auras were extremely shocking. Each of them was infinitely close to the third Khanate disaster. They were only one step away from successfully entering the third Khanate disaster. The bodhisattvas blocked the way. Only by breaking through could one see the face of the Buddha. "Ah man," said Prince Yen calmly. Ah man nodded and put down her sword rack. She didn't say anything and obediently retreated from the battle. "The 4 deities of the competition pavilion would like to learn from you," said the leading bodhisattva as he stepped forward. "Please." Prince Yen stretched out his hand and said politely. As soon as he said this, the atmosphere became tense. The battle was about to begin. The 4 deities of the competition pavilion were going to battle a legend of the great Xia dynasty. The green and red swords were drawn. The four of them moved, and the indestructible body of the Vajra clashed with the two swords. The sounds of battle rang out. Prince Yan's swords were light and quick, but they were heavy in an instant. The constantly changing sword moves didn't stagnate at all. His attacks were sharp and forceful, and his defense was watertight. The sword on the divine prefecture sword shone again. The powerful four deities of the Buddhist sect couldn't gain the upper hand for a while. There's actually such an amazing sword in the world. The eyes of the competition pavilion lord flashed with surprise. Such extraordinary swordsmen were rare even in the homeland of Western Buddha. At this moment, the light in the sky gathered. An illusory light figure appeared. Although the face couldn't be seen clearly, the unusually strong pressure revealed the identity of the person. Light deity, the discipline pavilion lord and the competition pavilion lord said respectfully. Jing Feng, Jia Lu, if the two of you watch carefully, it might be able to help your cultivation in unexpected ways, said a gentle voice from the projection. Yes. The two of them accepted the order and replied. The light figure dissipated, and the pressure dissipated. The discipline pavilion lord and the competition pavilion lord stood up and looked at the battle in the distance. This time, they were much more serious. In the four deities trap formation, the light from the two swords was dazzling. The four deities of the Buddhist sect were light and heavy. One was fast, the other was heavy, and the other was heavy. It was shocking. When they were fast, they were like afterimages. When they were heavy, they were heavy. The competition pavilion lord and the four deities fought 4 against 1, but the more they fought, the more shocked they became. The four deities are going to lose. In the distance, the competition pavilion lord sighed softly. This person obviously hadn't used his full strength. It was just a competition, but the four deities were already unable to withstand it. This swordsman from the alien realm was definitely not weaker than the pavilion lords of Buddha Mountain. It wasn't that the four deities were too weak. It was just that under the suppression of the two swords in this person's hands, they couldn't even use half of their strength. Fast, accurate, simple, and amazing moves. The position of each sword was not the slightest bit off. It was really an eye-opener. He had watched swords for his whole life, and today, he finally knew how to use them. In the battle, there was a clang. The green sword Thousand June broke through the trap. One of them flew out, and the tip of the sword reached the throat. It stopped an inch away. Thank you for letting me win, Prince Yen said calmly. Amitba, please. The four stopped and respectfully stepped aside. Thank you. Prince Yen thanked them. He waved his hand, and the green and red swords returned to their sheaths. He stepped forward. A man went forward and picked up the sword rack again. She smiled at the four of them and followed. Junior sister, don't look, the leading golden bodhisattva glanced at the girl behind him and said. The girl looked away. Regret flashed across her face. She said, this girl is really a Buddhist talent. What a pity. Her state of mind is clear. No matter which path of cultivation she takes, she will be the most beautiful jade. If this girl has fate with Buddha Mountain, she will definitely come again in the future, the golden bodhisattva said calmly. The two who were far away did not hear the bodhisattva's words. The third battle of Buddha Mountain was here. It was the last test before meeting the Light Venerable. It was also the most difficult test. When they reached the top of Buddha Mountain, they stepped into the battle. There was no one in front of them. Prince Yen was not anxious at all. He waited patiently. At this moment, Buddhist rain fell from the sky. Lotuses bloomed on the ground. The golden Buddhist light was dazzling. Then, a brilliant figure slowly descended. He had a holy aura and a solemn Buddha appearance. The last test. Please, the Buddha said. Please. Prince Yan's expression turned serious when he saw that the Buddha was not ordinary. He waved his right hand. The sword frame trembled and Ningyuan flew out. Immediately, a strong force entered his body. He activated all his skills and rose to the extreme. The Buddha moved. Lotuses bloomed with each step. The ground under him rose continuously. In the next moment, a ray of light flashed through the Buddhist reign. The palm chi was shocking. Prince Yen waved his sword to block the attack. With a bang, the Buddhist lotuses around the two of them shattered. They turned into golden stars and scattered. The Buddha's palm shook the divine sword. One was as heavy as Mount Tai, while the other was as heavy as Ningyuan. This was the most extreme collision. It was a battle of moves. It was even more measurable. There were geniuses in the world, such as the legends of the Xia dynasty and the legends of the Barren City sword. They could not be measured by cultivation. Especially when they had a sword in hand, they were almost invincible. The Buddha was also extraordinary. He used his palm to shake the sword. He was not at a disadvantage. The sword was fast, the palm was fast. The sword was strong, the palm was strong. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 moves had passed. The two of them were still evenly matched. The sword and palm clashed loudly. The aftershock surged and the Buddhist lotuses scattered. Bodhi heart meditation, in a thought. The Buddha used his ultimate move. The scattered Buddhist lotuses reformed. In a thought, the supreme Buddhist Dharma appeared once again. The swastika appeared and spun around the two of them. Thousands of lotuses corresponded to each other and shone brightly. One sword forbids martial arts, no Tao in the world. Prince Yen waved his sword and used the same ultimate move. Endless black light spread out. The forbidding martial arts and destroying Tao appeared once again. With a bang, the two of them retreated. Then, the Buddhist light rose again and a supreme golden scroll descended from the sky. The golden scroll spread out and Buddhist words filled the sky. Each word was a mantra. They turned into Bodhisattva merciful eyes or Vajra glaring eyes. The legendary Buddhist Dharma appeared around the Buddha. Buddha merciful voyage, none wrong. Thousands of Buddhas entered the mortal world. The Buddhist Dharma proved the great way. The Buddhist light filled the sky and lit up the world. Prince Yen squinted his eyes. The Ningyuan shook and 3 swords flew out from the sword rack not far away. The Ningyuan trembled and turned into shooting stars. For swords move the world, heaven and earth fall together. The sword light fell and the move moved the world again. Immediately, the 4 swords shook the 4 directions. The Buddha shook and the ground collapsed. The 2 extremes collided. The sky and earth were miserable. At the top of the Buddha mountain, rocks kept falling and crisscrossing, reaching thousands of feet away. When the dust settled, the turbulent Buddha mountain calmed down again. The battle ended in a draw. Extraordinary swordsman, said the Buddha. You praise me too much, said Prince Yen calmly. Ha! The Buddha smiled faintly. In the dazzling light, the Buddha image changed. A young Buddha with hair walked out. His aura was many times stronger than before. Light Venerable, the head of Tianfu Mountain, the most powerful cultivator at the peak of the 3 disasters. He was on par with the master of the Demon Temple and the Palace Lord of the Divine Palace. He's so young, muttered Ah Man when she saw Light Venerable's original form. She glanced at him curiously. Light Venerable smiled. What a pure girl. Since he reached the peak of the 3 disasters, it was the first time he saw someone who didn't feel his pressure at all. Chapter 390. The legendary figure of the Grand Xia and the Buddhist lands Light Venerate met for the first time on Tianfu Mountain. They stood facing each other. May I ask why Benefactor has come? Asked the Light Venerate calmly. Xia Yen has come to ask the Light Venerate to help open the spatial boundary between the Western Buddha homeland and the Eastern Divine Prefecture, said Prince Yen. Oh. A strange look appeared in the Light Elder's eyes as he said, with your level of cultivation, you should be able to clearly feel the strange pressure coming from the divine prefecture of the eastern region. Without a doubt, the Netherworld King has descended. Now that the space between the two regions has been opened, it will be a great threat to the homeland of West Buddha. Prince Yen didn't waver. The Light Venerate should know that with the Nether King's power, opening the spatial boundary between the two domains is as easy as raising a hand. Avoiding it won't solve any problems. The Light Venerate sighed. With my power, I can only open a crack at most. It's impossible for a human to pass through. What do you want to send over? A sword. Prince Yan's gaze was grave. The blood moon hung high in the sky. The day of the battle was right in front of them. The atmosphere in the Marquis manor also became heavy. Before the appointed time arrived, Ning Chen walked out of the Marquis manor and rushed towards the northwest. In Azure Frost Valley, Ning Chen appeared and walked into Thousand Snow Lake. Dao Kuei had set up a formation to conceal all auras, making it difficult for the Nether King to find him. Mu Qiansheng walked over. Looking at the plainclothed figure on the lake, a trace of emotion flashed across his handsome face. He had still come. You have to think carefully. Your soul is too heavily injured. Once you retrieve it, it won't be able to hold on for too long. It will dissipate, reminded Mu Qiansheng. I need to focus all my strength on this battle. With this soul here, it will affect me. As he spoke, Ning Chen raised his hand and gently swiped it. The frozen lake cracked open, and an extremely cold air assaulted his face. The life scroll revolved, and the phoenix body that had sunk to the bottom of the lake slowly rose up. In the next moment, a sleeping red figure appeared, reappearing in the world. The cry of the phoenix could be faintly heard, and its life force scattered. At this moment, the yin-yang reversal, the four scrolls of reincarnation, poured a vast amount of life force into the phoenix body, forcibly supporting the dissipating soul. A moment later, the phoenix's body scattered, turning into specks of starlight that merged into the main body. The heavenly soul returned, and all of its power was gathered. As the three souls gathered together, the intense pain in his divine sense gradually disappeared. Ning Chen turned and looked at the young man in front of him. He said, "Thank you. Do you need my help?" The moment they passed each other, Mu Qiansheng asked. Ning Chen stopped moving and revealed an imperceptible smile as he replied, "This time, Ning Chen won't harm my friends again." As her voice fell, she left. After several steps, she vanished without a trace. Mu Qiansheng turned around and looked in the direction of the former's departure. He sighed softly in his heart. Just how many people would have to be sacrificed in order to end this great calamity? In the deepest part of the royal palace of the great Xia dynasty, dense mist lingered and purple qi surged. Sentiments floated above a dragon-patterned cauldron made of purple gold. The entire blade had already turned purple. The dynasty's 1,000 years of fate had almost all been transferred into the blade. Ji Ming walked over and looked at the divine weapon on the cauldron. He clenched his fist and the entire imperial city shook. The 1,000 years of fate that had protected the great Xia dynasty left the central dragon vein. Above the imperial city, the purple qi that symbolized the great Xia dynasty's fate quickly retreated and disappeared. In the Weiyang Palace, Zhang Sun felt the tremors in the palace. He stood up and looked at the dragon vein. His eyes dimmed slightly. Sentiments entered his hand and the wind and snow surged, sealing the overflowing fate. Below the purple-gold dragon-patterned cauldron, the ground cracked and a heavy aura appeared. The 1,000 years of Great Xia's foundation was revealed. One by one, the Xiantian realm and even the three disaster realm experts opened their eyes. Instantly, the space shook, unable to withstand the rapidly increasing pressure. Previous martial marquises, previous consecrators, one after another walked out. There were a total of 9 of them. This was the foundation hidden in the deepest part of the Great Xia dynasty. It was the final strength that could not be used unless the country was destroyed. Great Xia had such a foundation, Northern Meng had it, and even the barbarian dynasty had it. Only with the suppression of the dynasty's fate could it hide from the reckoning of time. Now that the fate of Great Xia had disappeared, the hidden strength had no choice but to reveal itself. Nether King. The leader of the group, a previous martial Marquis who should have died hundreds of years ago, looked at the blood moon in the sky. A heavy expression flashed through his eyes. So it was him who had descended. Junior knowing destiny greets Marquis Zhiga, said Ning Chen respectfully. In the 1,000 years of Great Xia's history, generation after generation of martial marquises had all stopped before reaching the Xiantian realm. However, there were always exceptions, and Marquis Zhiga was one of them. The title of Zhiga had been bestowed upon him by the 5th Xia Emperor. It symbolized the desire of the entire world to stop fighting. Marquis Zhiga did not disappoint. He had spent his entire life on the battlefield, helping the Great Xia quell countless wars. In his later years, after Marquis Zhiga had shed the heavy burden of being a martial marquis, he had once again attempted to break through to the Xiantian realm. In a short 10 years, he had reached the three-disaster realm. In the end, due to his lifespan reaching its end, he had chosen to hibernate under the purple-gold dragon-patterned cauldron, becoming a foundation to continue protecting the Great Xia. Young Junior, you've already surpassed me. Marquis Zhiga looked at the youth in front of him, gratified. The Great Xia's juniors had not disappointed him. The laws of heaven and earth have been suppressed by the power of the underworld king. We have a bit more time, said a middle-aged man dressed in king robes. That's good. Otherwise, wouldn't it be regretful if we just disappeared like this? Asked a consecrator from 100 years ago. Let's go. Before we leave, let's finish what we need to do, said Marquis Zhiga calmly. That's exactly what I was thinking. With that, the 9 of them transformed into streaks of light that shot through the air above the imperial city. They were like shooting stars in the night sky, dazzling and eye-piercing. Knowing destiny greets seniors. Ning Chen bowed, respectfully sending the 9 of them off. At the same time, Qing Ning, Xia Zi, and the others also bowed, their expressions dim as they sent off the Great Xia's seniors. 9 powerful auras descended from the Eternal Night God sect. They broke through the sect's grand formation and entered. A great battle shook the world. The 9 experts had joined hands, using the last of their strength to fight the Underworld King. There was no doubt that they would be defeated. In the face of a god, even heaven and earth were suppressed. Humanity's resistance quietly disappeared after unleashing its full power. A broken sword stopped in front of the Underworld King's chest. Marquis Zhiga's body gradually disappeared. He had reached his final moment. Human, what is your name? Great Xia, Marquis Zhiga. His final answer turned to dust as time passed. The martial Marquis of the Great Xia would not rest until he died. In the Knowing Destiny Marquis residence, Ning Chen glanced at the 2 people beside him and said, "Let's go." It's our turn. Yes. Xia Zi and Mu Qingxue nodded and left together. The cold wind blew into the distance under the moonlight. This battle would determine the future of the human world. The human world needed hope, a glimmer of hope that pointed to the light. The demonic mark between the eyebrows of the emperor was as red as blood. The demonic qi around him was unprecedentedly oppressive. He had released the demonic qi that had been suppressed in the forbidden land of the Great Xia for thousands of years. The emperor's last will could not be preserved for long. The woman was as beautiful as before, her skin as smooth as ice and her bones as jade. She was a descendant of the Zine dynasty, the one whom Knowing Destiny had fallen in love with. She had forgotten her past and became the first of the younger generation to step into the Xiantian realm. Today, she had also stepped onto the path of blasphemy. She didn't say why and nobody knew. The strongest combination, foundation, speed, and destruction. In order to resist the god, the 3 of them gave everything they had. They even bet the future of the Great Xia, just to bring a glimmer of hope to the human world. In the Chizhou Mountains, a black aura lingered. The underworld king descended with his hands behind his back. There was no emotion on his cold and flawless face. The supreme god of the seven despair sky realm had arrived as promised. He did not attack the Taotai, but waited quietly for the strongest challenger to arrive. The human world was filthy, and destruction was inevitable. However, the gods were happy to accept human resistance. Otherwise, it would be boring to rebuild the human world. Just as the wind rose, the sound of footsteps could be heard from afar. 3 silhouettes slowly walked over. One was calm, one was unhurried, and the last one was cold. These 3 were the strongest. Today, they were going to challenge the divinity. Finally, you're here, the underworld king turned around and said lightly to the 3 people. At the same time, in the homeland of West Buddha, the Light Lord stood on the peak of Tianfu Mountain with his holy staff. Prince Yan and Man stood behind him, waiting for the Light Lord to make a move. The Buddha staff shone brightly, illuminating the world. The young Buddha activated all his martial arts and condensed qi into his palm. He poured it into the smoke. Suddenly, an aura that was equal to the world circulated and disappeared into the void. The next moment, the space trembled violently. Everything was flickering. Ripples spread out, showing signs of instability. What does that bald ass want to do? The moment the world changed, Zi Tiangong's expression turned cold. He looked at Tianfu Mountain, cold light flashing in his eyes. Was he trying to draw the attention of the underworld king by opening the boundary between the 2 regions? At the same time, in the demon temple, the demon Buddha also sensed the changes on Tianfu Mountain. He couldn't hide his anger. Damn that bald ass, what was he thinking? On the peak of Tianfu Mountain, the Light Lord used all his strength. The trembling space collapsed inch by inch. The boundary between the 2 regions was finally opened, showing an endless passage. "Ah man," said Prince Yan. "Yes." Man nodded and strode forward. With a flip of her delicate hand, a green and gorgeous sword appeared amidst the surging blood mist. In an instant, the quintessence of water, wind, lightning, and fire surged out, and it swept out strand after strand of heavy pressure. The knowing destiny constitution was cold and couldn't merge with the origin of Ignis. Man nurtured the sword for him. Now that the sword was complete, she returned it. The sword flew out and turned into a beam of light, disappearing into the space crack in the blink of an eye. In the divine prefecture, the space cracked. A blood-red sword light fell from the sky. Sensing the aura of its original owner, it flew away quickly. On Mount Chizhou, Ning Qin sensed it. Looking at the sword falling from the sky, a strange light flashed in his eyes. It was it. The sword, which had been away from him for a long time, fell from the sky and stabbed into the ground. The sword hummed softly, as if it was telling its longing. Chapter 391. Knowing Destiny, Knowing Destiny. One's name, the other's life. Today, they joined forces to fight against the gods. The moment he held the sword, a bloody mist filled the sky. Red veins extended from the knowing destiny sword and pierced into Ning Chen's hand. The sword that was connected by blood showed its true form today. The strongest sword. The 4 origins of water, wind, thunder, and fire surged. The green blade and the red veins reflected a dazzling light. He had nurtured the sword for many years. Now, he was ready to fight. Lord Pluto, sorry for the wait. Please, Ning Chen stepped forward and said. Don't disappoint the gods this time. Lord Pluto's expression didn't change. He raised his left hand. Instantly, a powerful wave of qi surged out. The terrifying pressure made people feel incomparable fear even before it reached them. The battle started. Outside Chizhou Mountain, Luo Xingqian, Xian Tian, and the others appeared. They were there to watch the battle and also to guard against any accidents. Lord Pluto attacked. The first palm swallowed the heavens and the earth. Everywhere it passed, the earth collapsed. Giant rocks flew everywhere. The terrifying power was like the end of the world. Ning Chen focused. Purple chi surrounded his body. His blade condensed into vast essence and met the divine power head-on. With a boom, knowing destiny stood still like a mountain. The power of the god's palm disappeared. Oh! Lord Pluto praised. Heavenly fire rose around him. It was endless and lit up the 9 heavens. The blue divine flame burned the sky and boiled the sea. It lit up the entire world like it was daytime. Just as Lord Pluto was about to attack, Ning Chen attacked at the same time. The heavenly book opened and the world was born. The 3 scrolls rang together and reincarnation evolved. The scene of the beginning of the world appeared again. The divine flame clashed with the ultimate move. Between the two, the earth rumbled and cracked. Chizhou Mountain shook violently as if it had suffered a heavenly tribulation. The scene of the end of the world was shocking. In the distance, the spectators were shocked. Although he had the fate of the great Xia, the fact that Marquis Jiming could meet the divine power head-on was still shocking. Marquis Jiming is indeed the strongest person in the world, Luo Xingqian said seriously. Even in the entire 5 regions, there were only a handful of people who could take a divine move head-on. The foundation of Marquis Jiming's martial arts was far beyond theirs. He once said that after cultivating the Life Scroll's forbidden technique, one's foundation will undergo a qualitative upgrade. But it won't last for long. The human body's capacity is limited, and any power that surpasses the limit will quickly dissipate. So no matter what the result of this battle is, they won't have a second chance, said Li Luo. Hierarch, did you see how Jiming Marquis took Yama's attack head-on? Luan Fengchen asked seriously. The power of Pluto's palm was the biggest problem they could not avoid. No matter how strong Marquis Jiming's foundation was, he could not be compared with a deity. It was incredible that the two could fight head-on. If my guess isn't wrong, this should be the Taoist sect's Taiji Yin-Yang technique. 3 parts join, 7 parts divide, heaven and earth as the artifact, life as the beginning, nothingness as the end. For scrolls of samsara, true essence endlessly multiplying and multiplying. Only then can it forcefully resist the attack of a god, replied Li Luo. The battle between the deities and the Marquis had reached its climax. With the Grand Xia's 1,000 years of fortune, Jiming Marquis Jiming's foundation had reached an unprecedented height. His 2 divine weapons were shining brightly, constantly humming as they worked together to block the attack. Since the creation of the world, the 4 scrolls of heaven, earth, nothingness, and life were gathered in one person for the first time. The heavenly book Samsara was extremely powerful, and its power dissipated into nothingness. Mu Qingxue and Xia Zi still haven't found a chance to attack. Luan Fengchen frowned as he saw the battle becoming more and more intense, but the 2 of them still hadn't moved. Li Luo also focused. It was probably true. They weren't in the battle, so they couldn't completely sense the battle situation. The weakness of the 7 ultimate divine body had been mended a lot after Yama absorbed the origins of Yazi and Xieji. Now, it would be even harder to seize an opportunity. Jiming Heaven is not guilty. Divine flames appeared again, and the sword's edge condensed the power of the 4 origins, blocking the attack of a god. Then Nian Qing's blade light pierced through the heavens and earth, and purple chi spread for 3,000 miles as it slashed down. A shocking saber strike streaked across the sky. The terrifying might even left a glaring purple saber mark in the sky. Yama's expression didn't change. He flipped his palm and raised it into the sky. As the blade light descended, the purple chi exploded, and violent waves surged endlessly. Knowing Destiny's all-out attack was infused with the fortune of Great Xia, and even a god couldn't resist it. The mountain rocks shifted, and Yama took half a step back. At this moment, Mu Qingxue, who hadn't attacked yet, finally moved. With a clang, the Qingying sword was unsheathed. The wind blew, and the sword moved. It was so fast that it was hard to blink. "Do you think it's that easy?" Yama snorted coldly. He raised his hand to block the Qingying sword, and his palm condensed divine energy. Mu Qingshue's figure flashed, and he quickly dodged the palm energy. He turned back in an instant, and the sword broke toward Yama's qi again. Yama didn't have time to recover after the attack, and his true qi shook violently. The other part of his qi immediately mended the weakness of his divine body, and his protective true energy surged out, blocking the Qingying sword. Not bad. True energy spread out, and the woman in front of him was pushed back. Yama raised his left hand, and a sky full of thunderbolts descended, gathered in his hand, and attacked wildly. As the thunderbolts approached, Ning Chen immediately stepped forward, waving his sword and saber to block the attack head-on. With a bang, Knowing Destiny took 3 steps back, and the blood qi around him rolled violently. Scroll of Earth, Earth Destruction, Mountain Destruction. Ning Chen stopped, and the sword in his hand pierced into the ground. The next moment, the ground below him shook, and streaks of sword qi rushed out, turning into a sword rain that flew in the opposite direction. Yama flipped his right hand, and his protective true energy rose endlessly, blocking the sword rain. Then, he condensed his palm power, and another attack was launched. The roaring and surging god's move destroyed everything in its path. In the blink of an eye, it was already in front of Knowing Destiny. Ning Chen bowed, and frost condensed on his sword. Water, fire, wind, and thunder swirled on the sword, and the blood light condensed into a phoenix. As the sword was drawn, the phoenix cried, and it crashed into the god's move. With a shocking explosion, the phoenix scattered and returned to Knowing Destiny's body. Su Yi took a few steps back, and the sword in her hand turned into flowing light and flew out. Resonance of heaven and earth, life and death defying destiny. It was an ultimate move. The sword and the blade turned into a void, and the clouds pressed down. The earth surged with sharp light, and the crisscrossing shadows of the sword and the blade trapped the god's body. Yama's protective true energy protected him, and his 2C of qi rotated, blocking the blade light. Flying sword feather. In an instant, the true energy vibrated, and thousands of sword qi gathered behind Mu Qingxue, turning into a pair of wings. In the blink of an eye, Mu Qingshue's figure was 30% faster than before. The Qingying sword directly pierced into the weak point of the sea of qi. Heaven rises, earth falls, no life. Seeing the weakness of the god's body, Ning Chen's body moved instantly. In the next moment, Su Yi disappeared, and she turned into a streak of light, arriving in front of the god in an instant. Frost condensed on his sword finger, and the wind and snow turned into a glaring sword light, rushing out. Yama's eyes turned cold, and his genuine qi spread out, shaking off the Qingying sword in front of him. Then, he turned his palm to block the sword light condensed by the wind and snow. Tisk! The sound of clothes tearing could be heard. Yama didn't have enough qi to block 70% of the attack, and the sword light was deflected, brushing past the god's shoulder. Blood flowed out, and it was the first time the god was injured since the battle started. Sword moves wind. At the same time, Mu Qingshue's figure turned back, and the Qingying sword quickly changed direction, breaking towards the sea of qi in front of Yama's chest. Not far away, Xia Zi, who had been watching the battle, also moved. Demonic qi swirled, and the sword qi followed. The sword qi carried the power to break mountains, and rushed towards the end of the Qingying sword. One sword assisted the other, and the Qingying sword advanced another inch, breaking through Yama's protective true energy, and piercing into the god's chest. Too slow. Just as the attack was about to succeed, Yama opened his eyes, and a cold light flashed past. The two figures flew out together, vomiting blood. Mu Qingxue, Zi. Ning Chen's heart shook, and he didn't have time to look. His sword condensed frost, and his saber moved the wind and clouds. The four scrolls resonated, and between heaven and earth, water, fire, wind, and thunder roared, and a shocking power was activated. Jiming Marquis, your performance has satisfied God, but it's time to end this. As soon as he finished speaking, the divine light around the Nether King's body shot up to the 9 heavens. The dazzling brilliance was dazzling. In the next moment, it could destroy the heavens and the earth. Jiming Marquis blocked the attack, and with a bang, he was forced back several steps. Since the start of the battle, he had continuously blocked the Yama King's attack, and his body was showing signs of collapsing. Not good. In the distance, Xian Tian, Jiang Hua, and the others' expressions changed. Just as they were about to help, they were stopped by Li Luo. No, if we join the battle, the situation will immediately change. At that time, not only will we not be able to help, but we will also break their tacit understanding, said Li Luo. If this continues, Ning Chen and the others will be in danger, said Jiang Hua. The Yama King's attacks were all aimed at Ning Chen. No matter how extraordinary his foundation was, he wouldn't be able to last forever. Sect Master is right. Furthermore, when Jiming Marquis and the others came here, they were already prepared to die. The reason they had us watch the battle was so that we could observe the Yama King's weakness. There's no room for us to interfere in this battle, said Luo Xingchen. Wan Fengchen sighed deeply. His eyes were grave as he looked at the battle in the distance. On Mount Chizhou, the battle was still going on. Jiming Marquis, who had blocked the Yama King's attacks, had a trace of red on his lips. Even with his peerless foundation, he couldn't continue suppressing the backlash from the Yama King's attack. When Xia Zi saw that Ning Chen's body was about to collapse, his heart sank. He endured his injuries, and the demonic aura around him rose to its peak. He changed his attack pattern and rushed forward. He was going to fight strength with strength, and he was going to block the Nether King's attack at close range. Demons, what a pitiful race. The Yama King raised his hand to block the Yama King's attack. Then he flipped his palm, and a terrifying divine aura surged out. With a bang, Xia Zi's black robe was dyed red. Xia Zi endured the divine might head-on. His blood flowed continuously, but his sword didn't stop either. Yama's sword, bury the heavens. As the sword approached the Yama King's body, the devilish chi exploded. Back off. The Yama King flipped his palm to disperse the Yama King's demonic aura. At this critical moment, Siyi's figure flashed, blocking the Yama King's attack. Wind and snow swirled, and she turned her palm to meet the Yama King's attack. With a huge explosion, the Yama King and the Yama King's palms collided. The Yama King's attack caused the ground to crack open, spreading out for hundreds of miles. Sword style, close distance. The only style, the only sword. Mu Qingshua's figure disappeared from where he stood, and when he reappeared, he was already in front of the Yama King. He used Chengying's sword, close distance, and once again pierced the Yama King's protective Zhen Yuan. Chapter 392. Just as the Infernal King's true energy was about to weaken, the sword pierced through his protective true energy and reached the God's Sea of Energy. They had missed the opportunity, but this time, they couldn't miss it again. The shadow-bearing sword pierced through his body and spun rapidly, causing blood to flow out. Seeing this, Xia Zi stepped out. His demonic sword swept out with a torrential demonic might, aiding his momentum. Ci. As the sword pierced through his body, blood gushed out. The Hell King's Qi Si was damaged, and his true Yuan was shaken violently. The Hell King took half a step back, enduring the pain in his chest, and forcefully counterattacked. A majestic palm energy was released, and the two were severely injured. They were sent flying and vomited a mouthful of blood after landing on the ground. At this moment, the azure sword appeared, and the four essences of water, wind, thunder, and fire surged, once again attacking the Hell King's injured Qi-Si. The Hell King's Qi-Si blocked the azure sword, but the injured Qi-Si was too weak to block the attack. Ning Chen flipped his left palm and slapped the tip of the azure sword. With a "ci" sound, the azure sword penetrated the barrier and pierced into the god's body. Eh! With a groan, blood dripped from the Hell King's mouth. He grabbed the azure sword, and divine flames rose around him. He flipped his palm and slapped out. Ning Chen couldn't block the attack in time and was sent flying. His clothes were dyed red, and he was sent flying dozens of feet away. Ning Chen, Xia Zi and Mu Qingxue were shocked. They barely managed to stabilize their bodies and slashed out again. Their swords crisscrossed and swept towards the injured god. The Hell King raised his hand and dispersed the two swords. The true yuan around him became even more unstable. The god's body was showing signs of defeat, and the God-Slayer battle was showing signs of victory. The three suppressed their injuries and pushed their true yuan to the limit. The next attack would end the Hell King's undefeated legend. Ning Chen's eyes narrowed. He turned his hands, and the sword left his hands. They circled around his body. Wind and thunder surged, and water and fire surged. Endless majestic power was born and died. With the support of the purple chi, the god-slaying technique shook the heavens and earth. 4 scrolls together, no life in heaven and earth. The strongest move gathered the power of the 4 scrolls and Great Xia's 1,000 years of luck. Heavenly might surged and spun rapidly in the air. In the next moment, the blade and sword carried the power to split open the heavens, turning into a dazzling streak of light that shot out. At the same time, Mu Qingxue took a step forward, leaping into the air. Her sword condensed to the extreme, and the sword wings behind her scattered, turning into streaks of sharp light, gathering on the shadow-bearing sword. In the blink of an eye, she fell from the sky. Autumn water flows through the 2 instruments, the sea of clouds reveals the heavenly light. At the same time, the ruler unleashed the demonic aura around him. Endless demonic aura soared into the sky and into the 9 heavens. The ultimate move of the Confucian sect appeared once again. The devil sword trembled, and its sword light shone brightly, reflecting its demonic might. The 3 people's most powerful moves intertwined and converged. In the end, they turned into a dazzling sword light that slashed apart heaven and earth and descended upon the divine body. Facing an unprecedented threat, the Nether King's expression turned serious as well. Amidst the raging wind, the godly flame roared out. Its destructive might cracked the void and suppressed everything in the world. The 2 extremes collided, and the violent shockwaves destroyed everything in their surroundings. The bodies of the 3 could not withstand the impact, and the corners of their mouths were dyed red. Shadow of the remnant wind. Amidst the shockwaves, Mu Qingxue took a step in the air and turned back. With extreme speed, she condensed the last of her strength into her sword and penetrated the divine body once again. A pool of blood dyed the body of the Chengying sword red. The sword had penetrated an inch, but it could not advance any further. Seeing this, Ning Chen and Xia Zi endured the heavy injuries on their bodies and quickly rushed forward. Their swords and sabers flowed together to support the Chengying sword. The sword penetrated inch by inch, indicating the success of the battle of blasphemy. Just as dawn was about to appear, the 12 wings of sin spread out behind the Nether King. In an instant, divine might erupted, blocking the sword in front of the sea of Qi. The fluttering black feathers were formed by the godly origin energy, and they disappeared in the blink of an eye. The 12 wings of sin also disappeared. The deity raised his hand, and an extreme divine might roared out. The 3 people were sent flying, and their blood fell like rain. The divine might was irreversible, and in the end, they failed on the verge of success. Blood dyed the ground red. The 3 people landed on the ground. Blood flowed down the sword and dyed the ground red. In the end, the humans were defeated in this calamity. You tried your best, but unfortunately, the result is already decided. The Nether King waved his hand, scattering the dust in the air. Looking at the three people in front of him, a look of approval flashed across his face. In tens of thousands of years, this was the first time someone had injured him to this extent. This trip to the human world was not in vain. The bleak night wind blew the fallen leaves. The three heavily injured figures were covered in blood, especially Mu Qingxue, whose foundation was slightly weaker. His consciousness was on the verge of fainting. Z, take Mu Qingxue away. Ning Qin struggled to support his body, and looked back at the emperor. You. Xia Zi seemed to have thought of something, and his expression changed. Today, no one will be able to leave. The Nether King raised his hand, and the 9 heavens lightning struck down. With a rumbling sound, the ground under him was hit by another calamity. Rocks flew everywhere, and the lightning turned them into ashes and disappeared. On the deity's right hand, the 9 heavens divine lightning screeched like 1,000 birds. It was extremely ear-piercing. The destructive divine move opened the road to the underworld. In the end, with a light sigh, Ning Qin no longer hesitated. He stomped his foot, and the scroll of life opened up. Extreme cold air spread out, and the heaven and earth trembled. The wind and snow surged, and the entire Qizhou mountain range turned into a world of ice and snow in the blink of an eye. Rising into the sky, Knowing Destiny's white clothes fluttered in the wind, and his body was surrounded by wind and snow. He looked like a deity who had descended to the mortal world. The aura around him changed from life to death. The aura of the 3 scrolls of heaven, earth, and supreme all merged into the forbidden move of the scroll of life. Destruction of life. 100 years of foundations scattered in a day, and 1,000 years of fate disappeared in a night. The move that gathered the strongest foundation and fate surpassed the heaven and earth, and broke through the limits of human beings. The wind and snow were dyed red, and it became the most powerful move that could kill gods and Buddhas. The Nether King looked at the white figure floating in the blood mist, and a trace of surprise flashed through his eyes. Humans had surprised the deities once again. The power of the forbidden move could destroy the heaven and earth. The space around Knowing Destiny kept collapsing, forming a huge hole. Only the wind and snow, stained with blood, rose endlessly, and its power was terrifying. Seeing that the power of the forbidden move had surpassed the limit, the Nether King raised his left hand again. The divine flame surged, and the blue heavenly fire reflected the falling thunderbolts in the sky. Suddenly, the thunder was loud, and the fire burned the sky. The divine power shook the entire divine land. The last ultimate move collided. The forbidden move of the scroll of life surpassed the heaven and earth, and even the deities couldn't completely block it. They were forced back a few steps, and the entire Qizhou mountain range collapsed. A huge crack appeared on the mountain range, and the heaven's gate was destroyed. It completely sank into the ground and became history. In the aftermath of the collision, Knowing Destiny flew out. His body was dyed red, and his blood spilled over 100 feet. Ning Qin. Xia Zi shuddered and quickly flew over to catch the falling figure. She said with a worried expression. "Hurry, go." Knowing Destiny spat out a mouthful of blood, he couldn't hold on any longer and fainted. "I said that no one can leave today." As soon as he finished speaking, the Nether King appeared in the raging sandstorm. His palm energy roared and attacked the 3. In that moment of crisis, an azure arrow containing unparalleled power shot over. Everyone's true yuan was concentrated in the arrow, and it crashed into the deity's palm energy. The aftershock dispersed in all directions, shattering the mountain. The palm energy disappeared, and the arrow light also collapsed. "Take Ning Qin and Mu Qingxue away. We'll cover the rear." Li Luo, Wan Fengchen, and the others appeared and said. Xia Zi didn't say anything. He took the other 2 and turned into a streak of light, quickly retreating. "You think you can leave?" The Nether King snorted coldly. Divine flames surged out of his body, and he slapped out with his palm. Rivers and mountains drink hatred, blood maple October red. Moon shadow. Vast armies might. Wan Fengchen, Jiang Hua, and Marquis victorious returns expressions became serious. They attacked at the same time, and 3 blades slashed down at the destructive flames. At the same time, Luo Xingqian drew his star mark bow. Li Luo and Xian Tian both poured their true yuan into the scarlet arrow. The 2 attacks intertwined. After attacking, no one dared to delay and quickly retreated. With a shocking explosion, rocks flew everywhere. The divine flames collided with the blades and arrows. True yuan shook endlessly, and the ravaged earth once again suffered a great calamity. The shockwaves from the shocking battle lingered for a long time. In the raging sandstorm, the Nether King calmly stood. In the end, the deity still won. Suddenly, blood spurted out from the Nether King's qi, and the vermilion liquid in his mouth dripped down. Ugh! The Nether King snorted and retreated half a step. His aura became violently unstable. What a good knowing destiny, Marquis! What a good forbidden technique! This time's trip to the human world is getting more and more interesting. The Nether King waved his hand to seal the wound on his chest. He looked in the direction that everyone had left and took out the Taotia's origin. In the next moment, the deity's body scattered and disappeared. With one of his 2 qis broken, the deity had returned to temporarily heal his injuries. Because of Ning Chen and the other 2's efforts, the destruction of the human world had to be temporarily stopped. The deity's departure caused the world to tremble. In the battle between deities, the human world had lost. However, it also allowed the human world to see hope. With his 2 qis broken, the Nether King's body was no longer perfect. The battle between the 3 of them provided the best reference for the human world's experts to face the deity again. Grand Xia, knowing destiny Marquis manner. Xia Zi brought the unconscious Ning Chen and Mu Qingxue back. As soon as he landed, he vomited a mouthful of blood. Luofei, who had been forced to stay behind by Li Luo, was startled. She quickly went forward to support him. Save them. Xia Zi's figure fell down. He had also fainted. At this moment, Li Luo and the others also returned. Sensing the 3's weak auras, they didn't say anything and immediately went to heal them. The Grand Xia is no longer a safe place. Before the Nether King comes again, we must leave as soon as possible, said Luo Xingqian. Where in the world is a safe place? Asked Luofei. To the 4 extremities. At this moment, Worryless walked out and spoke. Everyone frowned. They didn't understand why. Although the 4 extremities were far away, this distance didn't have any effect on a deity. Wan Fengchen suddenly thought of something and looked at Worryless with disbelief. You mean to say that we should seal the passage between the 2 realms? Yes. Worryless nodded, his expression grave. Borrowing the karmic luck of the Holy Lands, with my current strength, I might be able to seal the passage between the 2 realms for a while. Although I can't truly block the Nether King, I should be able to buy everyone some time to breathe. Chapter 393. Within the Grand Xia Imperial City, Li Luo, Xian Tian, and Luofei were separately treating 3 severely wounded people. Surging true qi constantly flowed into their bodies. After a great battle, the 3 of them had nearly exhausted all of their true essence and blood energy. Ugh! In front of Li Luo, Ning Chen unconsciously let out a muffled groan. His cultivation technique rapidly dissipated. He had forcefully used a forbidden technique, so he had to bear the consequences. Not good. Wan Fengchen and Jiang Hua quickly went up and poured their true qi into Ning Chen's body. The 3 of them worked together to stabilize Knowing Destiny's injured body. A quarter of an hour later, Ning Chen opened his eyes. Enduring the pain, he held his fingers together and condensed his chi. Before his chi dissipated, he injected the last of his energy into Xia Zi's body. In the next moment, a phoenix cry rang out. The red light left his body and reformed with his remaining life force. The Earth's soul left his body and merged with the phoenix body. His main body's aura dissipated and he fell into a deep slumber. According to Forgotten Sorrow, prepare to seal the passage between the two realms, said Ning Chen. Your body also won't be able to last much longer, said Li Luo gravely. It's fine. This isn't the time to worry about this. Let's leave first, said Ning Chen. What do we do about this place? Asked Luofei worriedly. The Nether King is naturally arrogant and won't attack ordinary mortals. Furthermore, he was heavily injured in this battle. His next target will definitely be the Phoenix Origin. If we stay here, we'll just bring disaster to everyone. Ning Chen narrowed his eyes. In today's battle, the Nether King's dual chi seas had been destroyed. He needed the Phoenix Origin even more to repair the flaws in his 7 ultimate divine bodies' true chi fluctuations. Once the Nether King repaired the flaws in his divine body, he would definitely pull back the other 4 realms. At that time, the power of a god would completely descend, and no one would be able to stop him from destroying the human world. They didn't have many chances. Before the Nether King pulled back the other 4 realms, they had to send him back to the 7 ultimate celestial realm. It's a bit inappropriate. Back then, in order to tie down Yao Man and the others, we left Rong Lu behind. Although our greatest enemy is the Nether King and we have to put aside our grudges, Rong Lu has been eyeing the Phoenix Origin for a long time. We have to be on guard. Speaking to here, Wan Fengchen glanced at Luo Xingchen and couldn't help but sigh. The world was truly unpredictable. Who would have thought that the enemy he had been so wary of would now become an ally? Ning Chen pondered for a moment and said, Mu Qingxue and Zi are too heavily injured and need to find a safe place to recuperate. Going to the 4 extremities is the best choice. I will deal with the matter of the Rong Tower carefully. The overall situation is more important and cannot be delayed. In that case, let's move out immediately, said Jiang Hua. Marquis, you must be careful. Ruoshi stepped forward with tears in her eyes. Yes. Ning Chen nodded. He glanced at everyone and said, let's go. In the next moment, streaks of flowing light shot out of the Marquis estate and rushed towards the Ascension Valley. The group of people who carried the last hope of the human world had taken away most of the combat power of the divine land. Before the final battle with the Netherworld King, the strength of the human world could no longer be damaged. When they were passing through the sky above Desolate City, Ning Chen suddenly stopped and looked at the white-robed man below. He said solemnly, Senior Mu Bai, we are preparing to temporarily seal the passage between the 4 extremities and the divine land. I wonder if Senior can come with us. You all go ahead. I still have things to do, so I won't be going. Mu Bai calmly said in front of the sword pool. The feeling he gave off was completely different from the last time he acted. He was absolutely restrained, like the most ordinary mortal. No one could sense any sword intent from him. Luo Xingchen narrowed his eyes. This feeling was familiar. Although it wasn't obvious, it was very close. Ning Chen also saw the difference and sighed in his heart. He didn't try to persuade him anymore and continued to fly away. The crowd quickly followed behind him, and before long, they disappeared from sight. Ascension Valley. One figure after another flew into the spatial passage. When they reappeared, they were already at the peak of the 4 extremities. When everyone appeared and saw the situation in front of them, they were shocked. The spatial turbulence that had blocked the passage between the 2 realms in the past had completely disappeared. The void in front of them was completely erased, making them feel endless coldness. Without a doubt, there was only one person in the world who could do this, the Netherworld King. Don't look anymore. Let's go. Ning Chen said, and with a stomp of his foot, he quickly flew into the distance. Everyone nodded and rushed forward together. For Extremity's Holy Land. The instant they appeared, Ronglu sensed them and opened his eyes. His figure flickered, and he appeared in front of everyone. Oh! When enemies met, their eyes would turn red. The tense atmosphere made everyone turn solemn. Luan Fengchen, you better give me an explanation, said Ronglu gloomily. Senior Ronglu, the Netherworld King's calamity is imminent. Let's put aside our personal grudges for now, said Luan Fengchen. Where's that bald monk Jian Bodhi? Why isn't he here? Does he not dare to come? Snorted Ronglu. Senior Jian Bodhi has already died in battle to stop the Netherworld King, said Ningchen calmly. Ronglu was startled. His thoughts suddenly became complicated. After fighting for 100 years, hearing the news of his opponent's death was like this. There was a trace of carefreeness, but there was even more regret and emptiness. From now on, there would be no one who wouldn't let him go. I don't care about your matters. Don't disturb me. Ronglu turned around and returned to his palace. The instant he turned around, he sighed inwardly. His complicated feelings were indescribable. Brother Jiang, bring Miss Luo to heal those two. Luan Fengchen instructed. Then he looked at the people around him and said, everyone, rest first. Ning Chen, worryless, come with me. Everyone split up. Luo Fei and Hua Hua brought the unconscious Mu Qingxue and Xia Zi away. As for the remaining people, other than Ning Chen and worryless, they stayed behind to rest. In the depths of the Four Extreme Holy Land, at the bottom of a rugged valley, Luan Fengchen, Ning Chen, and Wang Yu walked over. Not long after, strands of dazzling five-colored aura appeared, giving off a strange pressure that made it harder for people to approach. After another 100 steps, a huge stone bell appeared. Five-colored light circulated around it. It was extremely extraordinary. The stone bell had already become one with the Holy Land's terrain. It was a treasure that suppressed karmic luck. It was difficult to move. Ning Chen frowned as he looked at the karmic luck around the stone bell. This wasn't right. The Holy Land had existed for over 10,000 years. The karmic luck it had accumulated should be far greater than this. Do you still remember that white mist insect tide? Luan Fengchen could see what Ning Chen was thinking and sighed. Ning Chen was startled. Then he seemed to think of something and his expression changed. Could it be, you guessed right. Those things were fed by the Holy Land's karmic luck. I only learned of this recently. If the power of karmic luck isn't used properly, it's truly terrifying, sighed Luan Fengchen. A cold light flashed through Ning Chen's eyes. It was no wonder he had tried so many methods, but the white mist insect tide had never died. Instead, it had been destroyed by the berserk karmic luck of the barbarian dynasty. Those things really were monsters fed by karmic luck. With a wave of his hand, Nian Qing flew out and landed on the stone bell. A moment later, the surroundings changed. Endless five-colored karmic luck flowed out from the stone bell and poured into the saber. Forget the sorrow, said Ning Chen. She nodded and stepped forward. She raised her delicate hand and the spiritual chi of heaven and earth swirled. The five-colored karmic luck turned into a huge vortex and sped up the fusion. An hour later, the karmic luck in the stone bell had almost dried up. On the stone bell, Nian Qing's five-colored brilliance flowed, dazzling people's minds. Let's go. Ning Chen waved his hand and put away Nian Qing. He turned around and went back the way he had come. Luan Fengchen and Forget the Sorrow followed him and left together. The three of them left the Holy Land. Without stopping, they rushed to the west where the two territories connected. At the same time, in the homeland of Western Buddha, in a huge ancient palace, one terrifying aura after another descended. Each of them was at the peak of the Xiantian realm. Their terrifying pressure caused the space in the palace to distort. The demon Buddha of the Demon Temple, Zi Tiangong of the Divine Palace, the Light Elder of Tianfu Mountain, and two powerful existences from the Forbidden Lands gathered in the ancient palace to discuss the matter of Pluto. Light Elder, why did you open the passage between the two territories without permission? Asked Zi Tiangong coldly, looking at the illusory youth beside him. Ba. Does the master of the Divine Palace also have times when he is afraid? Said the Light Elder with a faint smile. Bald donkey, don't forget how the 5 territories were destroyed 30,000 years ago. You should know the consequences of Pluto descending on the homeland of Western Buddha, said the demon Buddha coldly. I know. That's why I tried my best to stop him. You and I should both know that the space barrier between the two territories can't stop Pluto. If the divine prefecture of the eastern region is defeated, the homeland of Western Buddha will undoubtedly be the next to suffer, said the Light Elder calmly. The smile on his face disappeared. It's already happened. It's useless to argue. If you have the time, let's discuss how to deal with the threat of Pluto this time, said one of the illusory figures from the Forbidden Lands coldly. Pluto has descended this time and still hasn't made a move to pull back the 4 territories. Most likely, something unexpected has happened. We are limited by the imperfection of heaven and earth, so we can't break through. When Pluto comes to the human world, he may also be limited by this. If that's the case, perhaps there is a possibility of stopping him, said the woman who hadn't spoken. What do you mean? Asked Zi Tiangong with a frown. Select the cultivators from the homeland of Western Buddha and send them to the divine prefecture of the eastern region. If possible, try to send a cultivator who is close to the realm of consummation, said the woman seriously. At their level, it was impossible to cross due to the space barrier. However, it was possible to send a cultivator who was close to the realm of consummation. It's too difficult. Zi Tiangong didn't immediately reject it, but he didn't agree either. The stronger the cultivation, the greater the repulsive force when crossing the space barrier between the two territories. It wasn't easy to send a cultivator who was close to the realm of consummation. In addition, there was another reason that wasn't easy to solve. The people sent to the divine prefecture of the eastern region this time were sent to their deaths rather than to deal with the Netherworld king. The choice of these people, especially this master who was close to the fulfillment realm, was not something that could be reached with just a few words. How to find him and which side to send him was not something that could be agreed upon. Chapter 394. In the ancient hall, the 5-party talks were at a stalemate. Everyone knew how precious an expert close to perfection was. Once they were sent to the eastern divine lands, the possibility of them coming back alive was minuscule. I will choose this person. Just as the stalemate was about to be broken, the woman who made the suggestion spoke again. After she finished speaking, she changed the topic and said, however, it's absolutely impossible for an expert who's close to the perfection stage to stop the Nether King. Shouldn't you show some sincerity? Oh. Who is the woman's choice? Purple Sky Palace's eyes flashed with surprise as he asked. You will know soon, the woman said coolly. Since the woman has made such a sacrifice, Tianfu Mountain cannot be stingy. We are willing to use the sin-cleansing spirit rhinoceros to help the woman, the Light Venerable said. Buddha Bone's sacred weapon, ha, the Light Venerable is so generous, the demon Buddha said with a fake smile. Tianfu Mountain is not like the demon temple. I think the demon Buddha's sincerity will surprise us, the Light Venerable said with a smile. Humph, bald donkey, you don't have to provoke me. I will not refuse the responsibility that the demon temple should bear, the demon Buddha said coldly. The divine palace will also fully support this operation. The sincerity shown will not disappoint the woman, Purple Sky Palace also said. That is good. 2 days later, in the ancient land of Changling, the woman will wait for your arrival. With that, the woman's figure slowly faded and disappeared in a flash. Ba, I will also take my leave. The light venerable's figure dissipated and left the ancient hall. We will meet again. The other illusory figure in the Forbidden Land also disappeared, retreating in a low-key manner. After the three left, Purple Sky Palace's expression turned serious. Demon Buddha, do you know when the woman has an expert close to Khanate perfection under her command? The Demon Buddha shook his head and said in a low voice, this is the first time I've heard of it. This woman has always been mysterious and difficult to see through. In the deepest part of the ancient land of Changling, a beautiful woman stood silently. Her delicate hand flipped through strange seals. Threads of light seeped out of her body and then condensed into a body. The face was 30% similar but 70% different. It was less cold and more peaceful. The one-body double transformation technique had reappeared in the mortal world, but it was even more complete than the incomplete version in the hands of Ning Chen and the Eternal Night Hierarch. Its aura was close to that of the Great Circle of the Three Disasters. It was hard to believe that this was only a clone. Female Chang, don't you think your actions are too risky? An aged voice rang out from the ancient land. I've already made up my mind. There's no need to say anything more, the female Chang replied indifferently. Within the ancient land, the aged voice sighed softly. It knew that any further persuasion would be useless, so it fell silent and no longer spoke. In Tianfu Mountain, the bright moon shone high in the sky. Traces of blood were overflowing. The influence of the divine land had begun to manifest in the homeland of West Buddha. The place closest to the sky was already vaguely visible. This calamity of the mortal world would not end with the divine land, but as the beginning. It would completely turn the 5 regions into hell. The steps of the gods destroying the world would eventually reach the 4 regions. The success or failure of the divine land was not just the success or failure of one region, but the survival of the entire mortal world. The Light Venerable stood at the peak of Tianfu Mountain. He glanced at the 2 people leaving below the mountain and sighed softly. In the end, he had concealed today's decision. At the same time, in the 4 extremes, at the peak of the 9 heavens, the important task of sealing the passage between the 2 realms had reached a critical moment. Ning Chen's luck turned into sentiments. Dazzling 5-colored energies surged out. Vast fortunes were like endless waves. At the side, Wang Yu channeled the origin power of the Tao body at the same time. As the wind and clouds changed, a giant whirlpool appeared and continuously absorbed the spiritual energy of the universe within 1,000 miles. In the next moment, the spiritual energy of the universe and the fortunes of the Holy Lands merged and poured into the spatial passage. At this moment, the world between the 2 realms rumbled and shook violently. It startled the gods who were still recovering their vital energy. Oh! In the dark abyss, Lord Pluto opened his eyes and exclaimed softly. In the blink of an eye, his divine body dissipated and disappeared. At the same time, in the barren city, beams of sword light shot into the sky. Endless sword will shook the 9 heavens and the divine land. The legend of the sword reappeared in the mortal world. All the swords within 3,000 miles did not listen to their master's commands. They unsheathed themselves and flew into the 9 heavens. Thousands of swords gathered in the sky, forming a sword cloud that covered the sky. Thunder rumbled and rumbled. The strongest sword in the history of the divine land stepped out. His white robe fluttered under the night sky. Black energy gathered and the body of Lord Pluto appeared. Feeling the omnipresent sword will, a strange look flashed in his eyes. In the sword pool, the chaos sword essence flew out. The moment it entered his hand, the blade changed. In the dazzling brilliance, the blade finally opened. The sharpest sword surpassed all the weapons in the mortal world. Before the sword moved, cracks appeared in the space. Swordsman, is this your challenge? Lord Pluto asked. Please, Mubai said calmly. I accept. Don't disappoint Lord Pluto. After saying that, Lord Pluto raised his hand. Violent winds and raging mists appeared. Shocking divine power rose endlessly. Even the heavens and earth shook and collapsed. Sword style. Before the divine move was used, the sword in Mubai's hand moved. The chaos sword slashed out a dazzling light. One sword, 10,000 calamities. The sharp sword light slashed apart the heavens and earth. It descended upon Lord Pluto's body and crashed into the raging mists. The sword light shattered, and the divine move was used. The indescribable power shook people's hearts. Sword style, limitless sword. After the divine move was used, Mubai's body moved. The limitless sword appeared. It was the fastest sword in the world. Wherever the will was, the sword would follow. It broke through the limits of space and drew a white shadow under the night sky. It was so fast that it surpassed the limit. Lord Pluto raised his hand and used his true yuan to block the sword. After a moment of deadlock, his true yuan shook violently and became extremely unstable. Sword style, formless sword. Mubai's primal chaos sword core disappeared. Thousands of sword images condensed into one. They condensed, then condensed again and again. The sword slashed out, gathering the world's sharpness. It instantly broke through Lord Pluto's true yuan. When the sword entered Lord Pluto's body, blood gushed out. After an inch, it couldn't move an inch further. Not bad. Lord Pluto grabbed the sword with his right hand. Thousands of sword intents appeared in front of Mubai to protect him. However, Lord Pluto's divine power was unstoppable. The sword intents continuously collapsed. Mubai's clothes were blown away. In the distance, Jian Yi and Jian Er's eyes were heavy. However, they didn't go up to help. They knew that this battle wasn't something they could interfere in. Moreover, their master wouldn't allow them to interfere. In the sky above Desolation City, the battle was still ongoing. Sword intents intersected between Lord Pluto and Lord Pluto. Each move was stronger and faster than the previous one. The heaven-proving sword had 9 heaven-proving sword forms. When one form was used, another one would follow. Even Lord Pluto didn't dare to be careless when facing Lord Pluto. With a flip of his palm, Lord Pluto once again used his ultimate move. The flame of burning heaven appeared with the power to destroy the world. Everywhere it passed, the space collapsed. The ultimate divine power was beyond what the mortal world could bear. The divine prefecture trembled, and the world wailed. Sword style. Mubai's sword moved. Sword intents surged out of his body. They connected the heaven and earth, shaking the universe. 10,000 swords, greet the ancestor. Lord Pluto had already used the 6 heaven-proving sword forms. What was about to come were the final 3 forms that surpassed the limits of a human's strength. Even before Lord Pluto's move was unleashed, the space within 1,000 li trembled violently. Above the 9 heavens, 10,000 swords rapidly revolved, forming a huge sword vortex. The heavy aura made people feel as if the end of the world had arrived. In the next moment, sword lights descended from the sky. They avoided the divine flames and reached Lord Pluto's body. With a muffled groan, the divine flames broke through the sword intents and landed on Mubai's body. Blood spurted out, dyeing his white clothes red. At the same time, 10,000 swords descended from the sky and crashed into Lord Pluto's protective true yuan. Sword lights and divine power collided. The sword lights couldn't withstand the divine power and crumbled unceasingly. Right at this moment, Lord Pluto's true yuan suddenly trembled violently, showing signs of instability. Lord Pluto frowned slightly. His body moved, retreating for the first time since the start of the battle. Lord Pluto's illusory body was like a flowing shadow. It was difficult to see with one's eyes. However, the sword streams formed by 10,000 swords followed him like a shadow. One sword pierced through Lord Pluto's protective true yuan, bringing forth a waterfall of blood. Lord Pluto's left arm was bleeding, dyeing his divine clothes red. "Is this your sword?" Lord Pluto waved his hand and scattered the remaining sword lights. Soon after, he stroked his left arm and the wound healed. "If this is all you have, then I'm letting Lord Pluto down by waiting for so long." As soon as he finished speaking, Lord Pluto circulated his true yuan. In an instant, divine power descended from the heavens and thunderclouds rolled. Streaks of lightning descended from the 9 heavens and gathered on Lord Pluto's palms. The crackling thunder illuminated the entire horizon. God's move destroyed everything within 1,000 li. Desolation City, peerless city of Grand Xia, collapsed. Under the divine power, it suffered the most terrifying calamity. Sword style. The divine tribulation descended. Mu Bai's eyes were unprecedentedly calm. He took one last look at the divine prefecture below him. In the blink of an eye, his sword intent spread out endlessly. Everything within 1,000 li was transformed into a world of swords. One sword to prove the heavens. Lord Pluto's white clothes dissipated. The 8th sword style that had never appeared in the world was also Lord Pluto's final sword style. 1 represented the origin of numbers, 9 represented the extremity of numbers. Heaven and earth had an end, the extremity of numbers. Lord Pluto's final sword style was the strongest sword style. One sword to prove the heavens. The man and the sword were one. A dazzling ray of light streaked across the sky. It was so resplendent that the 9 heavens and 10 earths lost their splendor. The strongest sword style made all the swordsmen in the world feel the sword intent that surpassed everything. They all looked at the horizon in shock. Above the 4 extremities, Ning Chen, who was about to completely seal the passage between the 2 realms, felt the familiar yet strange sword intent. His expression dimmed. Junior Ning Chen respectfully sends off Senior Mu Bai. Knowing destiny bowed, sending off the legend of the sword. From now on, in the divine prefecture, the sword had an end. Above the divine prefecture, the sword light and the divine technique collided. Rumbling sounds could be heard. The divine lightning dissipated and the primal chaos collapsed. The final sword style disappeared. Ugh! The world of swords collapsed, but Lord Pluto let out a muffled groan. Blood gushed out of his chest. He took half a step back and stopped himself. Specks of starlight gathered in front of Lord Pluto. An illusory figure condensed into Lord Pluto's final appearance. The sword in his hand pierced Lord Pluto's chest, but it missed by a hair's breadth. "Swordsman who has entered the Tao, leave your name," said Lord Pluto. Mu Bai. Chapter 395. The final sword caused Mu Bai's primordial spirit to disperse. Tens of thousands of swords wailed in the divine land as they bid farewell to the legend of the sword. The sword in front of the Nether King's chest turned into stars and disappeared. In an instant, the wind and clouds changed. Within 1,000 miles, the wind and leaves turned into swords. All things in the world turned into swords. Beams of sword light rose endlessly. At the end of the legend, the primordial spirit dissipated. The ultimate 9 swords finally appeared. The spiraling swords came and went without a trace. They came and went without a trace. One after another, they spun rapidly in the sky, forming a huge sword cloud storm. Oh! The Nether King looked at the spinning sword cloud, and a strange look flashed across his eyes. He raised his right hand, and his divine power swept out. The moment it met the storm, it disappeared. When a swordsman entered the path, at the final moment, he surpassed the limits of humans. His primordial spirit merged with the world, turning into the ultimate 9 swords that trapped the gods. Is this your final obsession? The Nether King put down his right hand and stood in the sword cloud. He did not attack again. No one knew if it was because he could not break through, or if the gods were moved by the persistence of humans and decided to give them one last chance. The gods were trapped. At the top of the 9 heavens, Ning Chen and Worryless worked together and finally succeeded in sealing the passage between the 2 realms. The longing saber entered and suppressed the providence of the divine land. The Nether King's power is too strong. The seal won't last long. Before that, we have to find a way to destroy the 7 ultimate divine body, reminded Worryless. Let's return to the divine land first. We'll discuss it again, said Chaotic Wind Dust. Okay. Ning Chen put away his thoughts and nodded. The 3 left and returned to the divine land. They did not have much time left. The next time they faced the Nether King might be their last battle. In the divine land, above the vanished desolate city, the sword cloud storm trapped the Nether King. After a day and a night, the storm gradually weakened and reached its end. At that moment, with a boom, space trembled violently. As the heavens and earth shook, cracks appeared in the void. The next moment, space collapsed as figures flew out. 9 3-calamity eminences and dozens of 5th tribulation eminences. Their powerful auras shook the entire divine continent. Just as space was about to be sealed, a woman slowly walked out and stood in the void. Her beautiful face was as calm as water. In the ancient land of Changling, women finally appeared in the divine land. Have the strong warriors of the divine great land withered to this extent? Behind New Chang, one of the 9 3 disasters scanned the ground with his divine sense but couldn't find a single true expert.
He couldn't help but sigh. Why can't I sense the Nether King's aura? Asked a 3 disaster expert from the Demon Temple. Over there. New Chang looked to the east and said. Within the sword clouds, Underworld King also sensed the foreign experts that descended. With a wave of his hand, he scattered the strands of sword energy that continuously swirled about his body, walking out step by step. Oh. The Grand Underworld King is actually trapped by this kind of sword formation. His reputation as the Underworld King is nothing more than an illusion, mocked one of the 3 disaster experts. The situation is unclear. It's still too early to jump to conclusions, New Chang said calmly. The expert from the Demon Temple sneered. Although he didn't say anything, he didn't care about the woman's words. He had never heard of Chang Yu, a half-step complete earthly sovereign, as New Chang's subordinate. However, with Chang Yu as the leader, he couldn't openly question her. The Nether King seems to be injured, said the 3 disasters of Tianfu Mountain after sensing the abnormality in the Nether King's aura. As expected. Yu Tianhong, the first swordsman from the Feihong Palace of the Divine Palace, narrowed his eyes and said coldly, "It seems that the Nether King's arrival in the human world is just as so-so." New Chang frowned slightly, feeling a little uneasy. She didn't know why the Nether King was injured, but she knew very well that if they really underestimated the Lord of the 7 Extinction Celestial Realm, who had destroyed the 5 regions, they would definitely die faster than anyone else. Let's leave first. When we find the 3 disasters of the Divine Prefecture of the Eastern region, we'll discuss how to deal with the Nether King together, New Chang said calmly. Compared to them, the cultivators of the Divine Prefecture of the Eastern region must have fought with the Lord of the Abyss and knew many things that they did not know. Before they truly understood the situation of the Lord of the Abyss, the best choice was to avoid him for the time being. I'm afraid there are no more 3 disasters in the Eastern region. Moreover, the Nether King is injured. This is obviously the best time to strike. How can we miss it? Yu Tianhong said with a serious expression. Brother Tianhong is right. Now is the time when the Nether King is at his weakest. Once we miss it, we won't have such an opportunity again, said the 3 disasters of the Demon Temple. Are you going to disobey the orders of the 5 Supremes? New Chang's eyes narrowed as she asked. We wouldn't dare. However, the best opportunity to defeat the Nether King is right in front of us. We can't turn a blind eye to it, said Yu Tianhong coldly. Have you finished the discussion? Just as the group was in a stalemate, a black aura gathered in the sky. The Nether King appeared and spoke calmly. New Chang's eyes turned cold. It was too late to leave now.
Set up the array, said Yu Tianhong coldly. With that said, the heavenly sword was unsheathed. A sword beam shot into the clouds. Soaring Goose Hall's #1 swordsman held his sword as his aura rose endlessly, reaching the third disaster realm. At the same time, the other 2-3 disasters of the divine palace walked out. 2 swords appeared, echoing the heavenly sword's sharpness. The 12 fifth tribulation eminences worked together as their swords moved, dazzling the world. The divine palace's Big Dipper sword array appeared once again. Sword beams intersected in the world, trying to trap the gods. The Nether King remained as immovable as a mountain. His protective quintessential essence condensed and blocked wave after wave of attacks. The battle fell into a stalemate. When the 2-3 disasters of the demon temple saw this, they gave the order and led their troops to help. The sharp edges threatened to take one's life. Your swords have disappointed God. The Nether King waved his hand and repelled the incoming attacks. Following that, he flipped his palm, and extremely destructive divine flames shot out. When the divine flames appeared, everyone's expressions changed. A nearby divine palace expert from the 3 disasters of the divine palace couldn't dodge in time. He brandished his sword to block the divine might, but with a loud bang, his sword shattered and he died. The divine palace's Big Dipper sword array was famous in West Earth. However, after seeing the sword on the sword, the Nether King had clearly lost interest in the sword array in front of him. He no longer held back when he attacked. Blood-stained figures fell from the sky. The Nether King's coldest side appeared once again. The divine move howled and surged forward. Anyone who touched it would be injured and die. The Nether King raised his hand and said coldly, "You're next. Retreat." Seeing that nearly half of the sword array had been destroyed in the blink of an eye, Yu Tianhong suppressed the shock in his heart and shouted anxiously. Too late. The Nether King's figure flashed. As black aura surged, he instantly arrived in front of the #1 swordsman in the divine palace. He struck out with God's palm, taking his life. Seeing that his life was imminent, Yu Tianhong circulated all his energy and circulated the heavenly sword in his hand to block the divine might. At that moment, a golden sword appeared. Together with the heavenly sword's edge, it blocked the divine might. With a bang, the 2 of them retreated a few steps. The corners of their mouths were dyed red, and blood gushed out of their arms. Oh! A weapon that can cleanse sins and sever karma. The Nether King looked at the sword in the woman's hand as a strange glint flashed in his eyes. The Nether King's eyesight is admirable, said the woman as she wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth. Your weapon isn't bad. Unfortunately, you will still lose. With that said, the Nether King raised his hand of God again. Endless waves roared out. The 10,000-foot-tall waves shook the world. Let's go. The woman didn't want to continue fighting. She quickly retreated with the heavily injured Yu Tianhong. The remaining 7-3 disasters and less than half of the 5th tribulation eminences didn't dare hesitate. They immediately retreated from the battle. However, how could those who had blasphemed God's face leave so easily? God's attack descended, destroying everything in its path with an unstoppable force. The 2-3 disasters and many 5th tribulation eminences were unable to retreat in time. They flew out with a bang as blood splattered across the sky. When the woman saw this scene, her expression didn't waver at all. She quickly retreated without any intention of stopping. The remaining experts' hearts were abnormally heavy, but they knew that they would only be sending themselves to their deaths if they stayed. They sped up and left together. The Nether King stood there and watched the group of people leave. His cold expression didn't change at all. With a wave of his hand, the heavily injured figures floating in the air shattered and scattered, turning into a rain of blood that rained down. The next moment, black gas surged, and the Nether King's body disappeared. A group of people appeared in Great Xia's northern borders. After landing, they vomited blood. They were still shocked and couldn't calm down. No one expected the Nether King to be so powerful. A cold light flashed in the woman's eyes. With a wave of her hand, she threw the heavily injured Yu Tianhong to the side. If it weren't for the fact that she needed people, she really wouldn't want to save these trash. People who only had cultivation but no brains were really disgusting. There were only 6 people left from the 3 disasters, and almost all of the 5th tribulation eminences were wiped out. In just one battle, they had lost half of their combat strength. It was obvious that their future path would be even more difficult. The Nether King's strength was indeed beyond imagination. However, what made her more concerned was that such a powerful Nether King was actually injured. It seemed that the experts of the Divine Prefecture were more valuable than she had expected. Next, she had to find the top experts of the Eastern Divine Prefecture as soon as possible, especially before the Nether King attacked again. Otherwise, she couldn't guarantee that the people behind her would survive the next time. In the 4 extremes sacred land, Ning Chen stood alone and pondered. At this moment, the chaos scroll trembled. Blue stars flew out one after another, condensing into a familiar figure. "It's time to make up your mind," said Fan Lingyue calmly. "I've taken in a disciple for you." "Do you want to see her?" asked Ning Chen softly. Fan Lingyue was silent for a moment. Then she said, "Let's see her once." It can be considered the last farewell before we leave. All this time, I couldn't agree with your ideals. I didn't expect that in the end, you would still have to do this, said Ning Chen self-deprecatingly. To achieve great things, there must be sacrifices. This time, you and I will be buried with them. We can atone for our sins on the road to the Yellow Springs, said Fan Lingyue calmly. Do you have any unfulfilled wishes? Ning Chen sighed softly. World peace, said Fan Lingyue slowly. It was a wish that had never changed. It sounded so ironic when it came from the military advisor of Northern Meng, who had started the war between the 2 dynasties and killed millions of people without even blinking. However, Ning Chen believed that since the day they met, he had never doubted it when he heard this sentence. Ha! Hearing this again, Ning Chen smiled faintly. He quietly looked at the Divine Prefecture in the distance and didn't say anything else. Chapter 396. In the Divine Prefecture, snow fell like goose feathers. Ever since the everlasting night, the weather was getting colder and colder. The casualties caused by the natural disasters were getting more and more serious. In less than 2 months, the tribulation of Yama had almost wiped out all the cultivators in the human world and brought unprecedented despair to mankind. Battle after battle, the god-level strength displayed by Yama destroyed mankind's resistance with an overwhelming advantage and wiped out the hope of the human world little by little. In the northern border of the Great Xia, the cultivators from the West Land had rested for a few days. Nu Chang looked at the figures who kept returning and narrowed her eyes slightly. The cultivators of the Divine Prefecture had all disappeared. It was really unbelievable. Maybe there are no more 3 disasters in the eastern region, Yu Tianhong, who had taken the elixir of the Divine Palace and had almost recovered from his injuries, said. Impossible, Nu Chang denied. Why? Yu Tianhong frowned slightly and asked. The eastern region has not been destroyed. This is the best proof, Nu Chang said coldly. With the power of Yama, destroying the Divine Prefecture was just a matter of raising his hand. The reason why the eastern region had not suffered a devastating catastrophe was that the cultivators of the Divine Prefecture had restrained most of Yama's energy. Let's split up and go to the imperial court in the human world to find out the reason. When she spoke up to this point, she glanced at them, and her expression turned cold as she said, It's the most sensitive moment right now, so I'll give all of you a piece of advice. Put away that superior attitude of yours. This isn't West Earth, and no one will care about your identities. If we get into conflict with the experts of the Divine Prefecture because of you, then don't blame me for being merciless. Don't worry, Chang Nu. We will pay attention to our words and actions. Seeing that the atmosphere was a little stiff, the cultivators of the three disasters of West Buddha Mountain came out to smooth things over. Nu Chang did not say anything more. She walked lightly and disappeared after 2 steps. Leave the Beimang royal family to me. Yu Tianhong followed her and went north. Everyone split up and did their own things. They tried their best to find the remaining cultivators of the divine prefecture. In the main hall of the Weiyang Palace in the Great Xia Imperial Palace, a beautiful figure appeared out of thin air. Her unusually powerful aura made Qing Ning, who was accompanying Zhang Sun, look serious. I am Chang Yu, from the homeland of West Buddha. Nu Chang revealed her identity first. Seeing the strange woman in the hall, Zhang Sun's expression did not change and said calmly, Qing Ning, serve tea. Many thanks. The woman responded, then walked to a chair at the side and sat down. Qing Ning walked forward and took the tea tray from the palace maid. She placed it in front of Chang Yu and politely said, please. Thank you, Mississippi. Nu Chang also noticed the unusual aura of the woman in front of her and said. Qing Ning nodded and didn't say anything else. She did her own thing and returned to Zhang Sun's side. Miss Chang Yu, may I know the reason for your visit? Zhang Sun asked. I want to know the whereabouts of Marquis Jiming and the others, so that we can discuss how to deal with Yama together. Female Chang did not beat around the bush and went straight to the point. After coming to the eastern region for a few days, she had a rough idea of who the main powerhouses of the divine land were. This Marquis Jiming was the primary candidate she was looking for. Miss Chang Yu has come late. 7 days ago, after the battle between Jiming Marquis and the Nether King, there has been no news of them. I have already sent people to search for them for several days, but to no avail. Zhang Sun sighed. Oh. Nu Chang frowned and asked, where did this battle take place? Qizhou Mountain Range, Zhang Sun replied. In that case, Chang Yu will take her leave first. Sorry to disturb you. While speaking, Nu Chang stood up and was about to leave. Wait. Qing Ning, who had been silent all this time, spoke up. Nu Chang stopped and turned to look at Qing Ning, waiting for the reason. When Yama attacks, his genuine qi will shake violently and even break off. However, this time is very short and difficult to grasp. I hope this information will be helpful to you, Qing Ning said calmly. Nu Chang narrowed her eyes and said, thank you. After Nu Chang left, Qing Ning helped Zhang Sun up and walked towards the bedroom. Your Highness, his speculation was right. Those from the homeland of West Buddha sent people here after all, Qing Ning said softly. In front of benefits, there is no difference whether it is a sage at the great fulfillment or the most ordinary person. He understands people's hearts better than anyone else, Zhang Sun said calmly. I hope these people can hold on until Ning Chen and the others come back. Qing Ning sighed. The barbarian dynasty, True Extreme Country, Meniang Country, and West Earth also found nothing. No one knew why the cultivators from the Divine Prefecture suddenly disappeared. In the northern Meng Imperial Court, Yu Tianhong arrived. Ming Yu's answer was almost the same as Zhang Sun's. However, unlike Nu Chang, the first swordsman of the Feihong Palace of the Divine Palace obviously disagreed with this answer. He thought that the northern Meng Imperial Court was deliberately hiding something. The atmosphere of the conversation immediately became tense. Although Ming Yu was still young, she was definitely not someone who was afraid of trouble. Facing a top cultivator of the third disaster, her expression did not change. In the depths of the northern Meng Imperial Palace, a dynasty's treasures floated up and down. The suppressed treasures could appear at any time. In the end, Yu Tianhong suppressed the murderous intent in his heart and turned to leave. It was a taboo for cultivators to fight in the imperial palace that possessed the country's treasures. In addition, Chang Yu had already warned him. He could not ignore it. After Yu Tianhong left, Mingyu walked out of the main hall and looked to the east. A trace of sadness flashed through her dark eyes. Your Highness, don't worry. He will be back soon, Purple Crystal said softly. Yes. Mingyu nodded and suppressed her thoughts. Her gaze became firm again. She was the Empress of the Northern Meng Empire. She had to be strong. Within the Four Extremes Holy Lands, peak experts were taking advantage of this last bit of time to recover from their injuries. Among the many auras, there were two people missing. Ning Chen and Jiang Hua. There's no need for you to come along. I know the way. On the way to Heavenly Stellar City, Ning Chen glanced at the man beside him. Ha, you're just a meat bun right now. Whether it's the Nether King or Rong Lu, both of them want to catch you. With your current body, who do you think you can defeat? Jiang Hua smiled. That's a bit reasonable, but it sounds a bit awkward. Ning Chen smiled. The words are crude, but the logic is not crude. I haven't studied much, so I'll just make do with it, said Jiang Hua. Just as the two of them were halfway there, a blood-red light filled the sky, covering the blood moon. A boundless blood-red world sealed off their path of retreat. Jiang Hua, you really have a crow's mouth. Ning Chen sighed as he looked at the changes around him. Knowledge Marquis, hand over the Phoenix origin and I'll spare your life, said Rong Lu coldly. If I could live after handing over the Phoenix origin, would have already given it to you. Ning Chen's expression wasn't flustered at all. Right now, only Rong Lu dared to take the Phoenix origin. He had been stuck in the Four Extremities for so long that he didn't even know what the current situation was. Rong Lu frowned, feeling that something was wrong. There was no point in dragging this out any longer, so he didn't hesitate any longer. Brother Jiang, I'll leave it to you. Ning Chen decisively took a step back and stood behind Jiang Hua. His face didn't turn red and his heart didn't skip a beat. Ning Chen, do you know what I admire the most about you? Jiang Hua waved his hand and Qing Yu came out of its sheath, blocking Rong Lu's palm. But a wild wind blew and the ground beneath them cracked. To accomplish great things, I don't care about trifles, replied Ning Chen. Ha, the thing I admire the most about you is that your face is even thicker than a city wall. Jiang Hua's saber changed directions, and a moonlight flashed. Rong Lu retreated, dodging Qing Yu's saber light. With a clench of his fist, a blood-red saber appeared in his hand. If you don't want to help, then back up a bit. Don't affect my performance. Jiang Hua's expression froze when he saw Rong Lu's saber. His voice was filled with disdain. Ning Chen didn't say anything and retreated another 100 steps. He didn't have the slightest intention of going up to help. This phoenix body was already on the verge of collapse. If there wasn't a need, he couldn't help. As for Rong Lu, ever since he had escaped from the lightning tribulation, his body had been heavily injured. His strength was clearly not at its peak. Even if Jiang Hua couldn't defeat him, he could at least stall for some time. Within the blood-red world, the two sabers constantly clashed. One was heavy, while the other was light. Jiang Hua knew he didn't have the advantage in terms of cultivation base, so he didn't clash head-on with Rong Lu. After over a dozen exchanges, Rong Lu's expression sank. He condensed his blood yuan into his saber, and a dense blood-red light flickered. Ugh! Just at this moment, a saber pierced through his body and blood spurted out. A red-haired figure silently appeared behind Rong Lu. How could it be you? Rong Lu turned around with great difficulty. His face was filled with disbelief. Wan Fengchen pulled out the saber that had pierced through Rong Lu's back. He looked at the Rong Lu and sighed. Rong Lu, I really hope that you didn't follow us today. Ha! Blood flowed out of Rong Lu's mouth. Looking at the three, his laughter became crazier and sadder. It turned out that his every move had been calculated by others. It turned out that he had never been trusted by others. Ugh! A splash of blood dyed the sky red. Everything was red. This was the last scene that Rong Lu could see. In this chaotic world, if one did not look out for himself, the heavens would destroy him. Was he wrong? He wasn't wrong. Ning Chen walked forward and looked at the Rong Lu, who was in a daze. He said calmly, "Rong Lu, let me tell you one last thing. The Nether King needs the Phoenix origin to repair the flaw in his divine body. So, even if you take the Phoenix origin today, it will only be a wedding dress for the Nether King's disciple." The last sentence entered Rong Lu's ears. Light flashed through the Rong Lu's eyes, but it quickly dimmed. So, he didn't have time to say anything else. As his last bit of consciousness faded, he was completely annihilated. The Rong Lu only understood in death. "Wan Feng Chen, you've lost this bet," said Ning Chen. "Are people's hearts always so untrustworthy?" sighed Wan Feng Chen. "It's not that people's hearts aren't trustworthy. It's that before benefits, people's hearts aren't trustworthy. There are many benefits in this world. Power is a benefit, longevity is a benefit, and even gratitude and grudges are also benefits," said Ning Chen. It was like the life-knowing cultivators. When had they ever avoided benefits? The only difference was that the Rong Lu used longevity as a benefit, while the life-knowing cultivators used emotions as a benefit. Ning Chen walked forward and pressed his palm down. Blood-red light flashed, and Rong Lu's blood yuan transformed into stars that merged into his body, rapidly repairing his injuries. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.